Thanks so much for hanging with us, guys, as we get things sorted out. Just like in the recap, I had to play the part of Finch. Today, I guess for Desk, at least as of right now, I'm also playing the part of Finch. So just imagine I'm Finch, you love me, I'm a great caster, I'm not Gore, all Finch, you know, just every opinion you have about Goremizer, ignore and only focus on Finch here. But Mifflin, we're going to be moving into another 3-set day. Radiance and Sanguine starting it off. We just talked about this on the waiting room, but with Knights, Renegades, SSG United a little bit later, we're going to hone in more on this first match. Radiance making up one of their postponed games here. And now the question does come down to whether or not I think you believe in Radiance here. Do you think that we're going to see a bounce back from them, or is this going to be a Sanguine day all around?
I'm not sure that we're going to see them bounce back today in particular, but you'll never catch me betting against this team in the long run, right? Radiance is just spackled with all these talented players. Benji, Adapting, Big Man Team, Cyclone Spin, Aurora. If you didn't know the rosters of the SPL, you'd think I was just calling out some SMITE game Hall of Famers because each one of these guys is individually so strong. But I was talking to Finch backstage, and I think that it's a good point to bring up. One of the original concerns once we found out the roster of this team way back in Phase 1 is that a lot of these players have been perceived by the community to be these egotistical guys, these guys who have been considered the best of the game. They're very loud on social media or on their streams, and we knew that if this team ever did start to struggle, that it would struggle hard. There would be arguments, there would be things along those lines, and I think maybe right now that we're putting that to the test, it's going to be a hard bounce back, but I trust them to do it.
Yeah, it was interesting when we go back to the beginning of the year. It was all the talk of, oh, a super team. Super teams never do well. We'll have to see as we go forward. But it's Sanguine, realistically, that are maybe the ones who can benefit the most from this set. If they're able to find this win, you know, you go back and look at the standings, they actually flip with where Radiance was sitting. They find themselves, well, I don't want to say solidly in third, but at least temporarily in third, and keep Knights in that fourth place position. That's the only thing that this can change. Someone has to fall into third, someone will fall down to fifth, and there is a lot to look out for. I think it's very appropriate that this Amaterasu is maybe the highlights. She's won 9 out of the 12 games in Phase 2 that Sanguine have picked her.
Yeah, stop giving Yarkor Amaterasu, stop giving Nika Amaterasu. This god is the best solo laner. I'm going to speak definitively about it because I feel strongly about it. She does so much for her team. Dazzling Offensive, one of the best team fight tools in the game. But I think Sanguine in particular, one of the strides we've seen from them in recent weeks is the willingness from Panatom to stray away from the identity of the rest of his team, being that we're going to pick whatever's SSS on Reddit's meta, and then we're going to play what feels comfortable. Panatom now going to Susano, Thor, Mercury, these picks that aren't really these top pick things that you would associate with Sanguine, and he's looking a lot better on them.
And that's the thing, the Susano, the Thor, the Mercury. When Panatom is looking good, it usually helps all of Sanguine rise with him. But then you look at the other side, and maybe you're looking what was lacking. I had said this on Waiting Room, but for me, maybe not so much out of Adapting last week. I think he had a good Bakasera game, but that really was one of the only ones. Aurora, maybe not playing up to the same standard. You know, beginning of the year, always held up there next to PBM. Now, kind of slipping, at least it feels like. What is it that Radiance need to do for you in order to change this set around, come back, and kind of get back into form?
I think Radiance in the beginning of Phase 2 and Phase 1 in particular had this clarity to their team fights in that you knew what they wanted to do, they knew what they wanted to do, and they performed as a 5-man unit. But in recent weeks in particular, we've seen that they've really been struggling. Sometimes Aurora goes for a tower dive while the rest of his team is disengaging. Sometimes we see 3 people decide to be the zoner around an objective, leaving nobody inside the objective to actually confirm it. It just seems like shot calling is really where this team's struggling. But as far as picks go, I'm really questioning this Terra. We haven't seen any value out of it yet, but if Aurora's going to continue picking it, there's got to be some top end that we just haven't got to see.
And I can't remember the exact numbers after last week, but I know during last week they were about 50-50 with it. Like, she did well for them in Phase 1, didn't do well for them so far in Phase 2. So yeah, we'll have to keep our eyes on her. I also think it's interesting, I was watching this, and you see a lot of Cyclone Spin on Rom, where he's had a lot of success, but the triple kill, I think most notably against the Knights, was a Fire Giant steal for the Knights, right? Like, even when they're doing well, they're losing something else, and that feels like something that they're going to have to shift up. They've also been going for Khepri, who I think most notably has been on a more or less loss streak as of late, one of the more losing gods in the SBL right now, I believe. Under 20%, I'd have to go again and recheck the number, but between, like, him, picks like Kali aren't necessarily doing very well. There's a lot that we see Radiance keep gravitating towards that just aren't being able to come up statistically and provide for them the way that you need them to.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it's interesting the trajectory Aurora is deciding to take with his support picks. He's going for these less pressure-centric picks, maybe more so slanted towards the late-game team fight. But every other team seems to agree unanimously that the number one thing they value in a support right now is the ability to fight into lane. That's why we're seeing gods like Yamoja get picked up, Jingchen occasionally, Sobek, Ymir. All these gods have an incredibly strong levels 1 through 5. They're always kind of trying to jam down pressure in that long lane, look for purple buff invades, rotate into the 3v3, whereas Terra and Khepri take a little bit longer to come online. And at this top level of play, each one of these teams that come up against these largely immobile picks, these easy to pick gods who aren't strong in the early game, are constantly trying to jam pressure into it, which is why I think we're starting to see this Terra struggle a little bit.
Well, we're in a position now where we just have to wait and see, but luckily we don't have to wait much longer. Picks and bans going to go ahead and start now as we look forward to what these teams are going to pick. Sanguine going to be more notably on this first pick side, and so maybe able to control a little bit. I'm also very curious about these bans, just to whether or not they're going to be targeted. We had already mentioned specifically the Amaterasu is don't let Yarkor have it. But when you look towards Radiance, Cupid, one of their most picked gods, as well as this Rom, they really do like to prioritize Cyclone Spin.
They do, and Sanguine's been a team in the past that is very willing to target ban out whoever they're playing against. They're the first team in the league to ever ban out the Anubis up against Ghost Gaming before we had any data points to even talk about the Anubis. Sanguine is always trying to put the enemy team on the back foot, so I would expect to see them try and ban out at least a couple of Cyclone Spins picks. Even try and look towards the enemy jungler adapting. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Robin. But this Amaterasu ban, interesting to see, especially considering they're in the first pick slot, and we know that how much success it's been having for Sanguine, but I'm not going to shy away from it. Benji's got it at an Amaterasu as well, and he plays it among the best of them.
Yeah, it's playing with fire, and that's actually the pick that I was waiting for, is this Persephone, because it's not let through a lot, but Sanguine have been able to pick it up 6 times. They've won with it 4 of those 6. So it's one of those picks that maybe you're trying to make that magic shuffle to see if it can happen. It is one of the most banned gods, though, throughout Phase 2. I'm just interested to see more or less what they're going to first pick when they get rid of the Amaterasu. If Radiance don't ban Rom, that seems to be the shoe-in for a lot of these teams. But, you know, you have to go back and look at what Hebo has been doing, although he hasn't been first picked a lot lately. You know, with Cupid being banned, it shakes things up. And now the Hunter picks as a whole are going to be shaken up because Rom's banned out. The top 2 have been taken off board for teams like the Knights. This has been where Heimdall comes in. Other teams, we saw Uller technically earlier today in the SOC. I don't know if we'll get to see that here in the SPL, but there's a lot of picks that are available for him still.
Yeah, there seems to be 2 trains of thoughts as far as hunters go, insofar as that next best tier, right under the Rom and the Cupid. Some of the more aggressive-minded ADCs like to move in towards that Heimdall, make use of that aggressive ultimate, or even the survivability in lane. And then players like Netrioid, I think, really like to stray towards the Jing Wei. The survivability, the ability to maneuver around these team fights comes into a huge way. But Sanguine, with keen eyes, are going to spot out that Hercules. Talk about pressure out of that support role. It's going to be Hercules. That's the next best thing once Yamoja's been banned out. Controlling lanes, able to rotate throughout the team fights. Pre-level 6, this guy might as well be a secondary jungler. I love this pick for Sanguine.
I actually love it too. You know, me small brain forgot about Hercules over there. You know, the most aggressive, save for Yamoja support that has been in the league the last few weeks. But I mentioned Uller. I'm going to be 100% with you, Mifflin. I didn't actually expect to see Uller. I was just throwing out the first name that came to mind when I thought of Hunters, and it happened to be one of the only ones we saw this morning. But it's going to be Uller Khepri. This is something, you want to run it back? I cover up the name and the color for this team. I'm thinking this is SSG. That's something that Vote and Raffer have run to some success, but I don't think we've seen a lot of it come from Radiance.
No, we really haven't, but it makes up for some of the weaknesses if it is going to be an Uller Khepri lane. We don't really have all the data points here just yet. It could be Uller flexing to mid, but if it is going to be together in that long lane, Khepri being a little bit lower pressure than Hercules, obviously, is going to be made up for by the fact that they have an Uller. The ability to push in those waves is going to come naturally to that god nearly on his own, but it's going to take a couple of levels. Levels 1 through 4, I think, are going to be really where Sanguine are looking to exploit the early game of Radiance inside of that long lane. But it should be easy to mitigate. If Radiance decide to play a little bit slower there, they play a little bit further back, it's nearly impossible, rather, to zone out. And arrow, hail of arrows, some of the longest range abilities for a hunter in the game. You could freeze the wave, Uller will hit it from his tower line.
Well, this is a fun one to see. King Arthur locked in. Maybe not as successful for some of these other teams, but Ghost Gaming most notably have been bringing it through and kind of showcasing again why he's very solid. Although it is with Cthulhu still on the table, and we've kind of talked about it a lot, I think maybe more in the past, where Amaterasu was the go-to for dealing with Cthulhu, at least making sure he stalled out in lane. Nemesis maybe still on board. I mean, this is an interesting pick, I think, simultaneously for Sanguine and for Radiance, because Cthulhu hasn't really been the most winning god we've seen lately.
Yeah, certainly underperforming, and we also know that Achilles has a decent counter matchup into Cthulhu, but with Sanguine going ahead and taking the King Arthur for themselves so early on in the draft, it opens up Radiance to go ahead and get that pick and not feel too dangerous about it. Surprising to see that Radiance decide to elect not to ban out the Nemesis, one of the few direct counter matchups. Instead, it's going to be Sanguine banning the Nemesis for themselves. Panatom has struggled on that pick in the past, so I don't think it's too surprising to see that Sanguine aren't really willing to go towards it. But it will be interesting to see what god he does elect to pick up. There's a bunch of bans coming through here. I would have thought potentially we saw a Hebo jungle come out for Sanguine, which is not something we've seen from Panatom in the past, but Radiance target that one out immediately and ban it. I like this Poseidon pick, though. There's a lot of CC on the side of Radiance. These Krakens should come freely.
I was going to say, you want to talk about hot gods, people who are rising up right now? Poseidon, again, he's kind of floated around the league all year, every now and then dipping his toes in the water and showing face, but no one's been picking him up a whole lot. But the last 2 weeks now, he's been showcased a little bit more often, Kraken, big burst damage, and like you said, with a lot of CC maybe to help him set up. It feels pretty solid over there in mid. Going up against the Thoth, which has been treating Sanguine, I think, incredibly well, still feels like an understatement considering how much we saw Shinto doing with that pick. The Erlang Shen as well. A lot of warrior-heavy picks here for Sanguine, but it feels early game. It feels almost counter-Sanguine in my mind, at least what I've gotten used to seeing Sanguine on. How do you like their draft?
It's a good draft overall. It's a draft that screams Ghost to me, but Sanguine have been really skewing themselves towards the early game recently. Erlang Shen, not a pick that I really associate with Panatom. It's a lot of backline dive, as you already highlighted, but Radiance have the tools to deal with that backline dive. Capri as a disengage god, just Scarab's Blessing to make sure that, okay, 3 people are on my backliner, I'll get them out of there scot-free, and then Poseidon to drop Whirlpool just to separate the team fight, make it harder to find the transformation from Erlang as well. I think that there are a lot of tools here that Sanguine are going to have to work through deftly if they win out on these team fights cleanly. But they still have the additional benefit of having this Thoth with a backline dive team and having an artillery strike mage that can hit you from further away than anyone else in the game can hit you from. It means that your own backline is going to be assisting your front line from relative safety. This Bakasura pick for Radiance is almost a direct counter to that. He's addressing that, well, we don't have really anyone else in the team that can handle this Thoth. What's the best pick I can look for? Bakasura. I'm going to drop my ultimate, I'm going to press W, I'm going to left click at the same time, and pray that things work out.
And this is actually an interesting one just because the Bakasura, again, treated them nicely last week for Radiance. And again, going back to the waiting room, we were talking about Bastet, gods that just kind of do damage better than other gods. Bakasura has to be high on that list. Keep your eyes on adapting through this game. Sanguine, though, look to control the early game. We'll have to see if they can do it here as we go down to game number 1.
Sanguine versus Radiance. Game number 1. Give me some T-tours in chat. We've got the player cams going. It's Dolson, it's Aggro, it's Doug. And you in chat, aside from T-tours, let us know who you think is going to win this matchup. Aggro, we talked on the pre-show, the waiting room. Me and Finch went with Radiance on this one. I do think, all things considered, this would be a close matchup. Maybe one of the most important of the phase so far for Radiance.
Feels like they just have to stop the bleeding somehow. And the good news for Radiance fans is I think that they found some things that worked for them in their previous sets. This was very similar to the composition they ran against Ghost in the one game that they won there. I don't know that Uller is really top 2 worthy right now, but it's all about what you think you can abuse on your team. And Cyclone Spin, despite the struggles recently, is still one of the best hunters in the entire game at pushing leads. Uller as a character, one of the best at pushing leads. I think it's a natural fit.
And the Bakasura for adapting as well. It's a good fit was a good fit for him against Ghost. 6-2-8 in the one win that Radiance had over Ghost just last weekend. So going back to something that works. And I think I like that mindset where maybe it's a pick in this Bakasura, while maybe not active so much mechanically. Mifflin kind of simplifies it. You drop your ult, you press W, and you left click. It's something I think that gives adapting the ability to make big impacts and maybe a chance here in the mid lane. Big man Tings pinned down. Panatom just walks at him, and the immobile Poseidon falls for first blood.
Love the patience by Panatom right there. Blink and wait. Big man Tings is expecting the pin to come out right away, tries to pre-beads it, and ends up really paying for it. And Panatom knows that Baka just doesn't do enough damage to threaten you at something like level 3, and I think that's a great place to try and abuse this pick. It is really, really hard, even as someone like Erlong Shen, to win boxing trades against Baka 3-4 items in. At level 3, before he had Regurgitate, before he's backed for any additional items, he is one of the worst assassins at fighting pre-5. So let's just look to be aggressive here. Let's try and set up a kill, and Panatom plays that one perfectly. Blink, patience, waits out the beads, and sets up Shinto flawlessly. That was really well played, and I love the decision-making by Sanguine, knowing that that's an opportunity for them to make plays around this pick for Radiance.
Of course, right as I'm talking about how adapting has the ability to be active, of course I more mean mid to late game, but that one all brought about by me. 60-40 is the community split on this one. I think maybe somewhat fair going into this matchup. So adapting now has the task of trying to scale back into this game. Of course, first blood, impactful, but it's what Shinto and now Panatom can do after this. Big man Tings doesn't have his beads for the next 70 or so seconds, so maybe more of this. Let's get some red buff invades going, and Sanguine are going to try to peel away as much of this gold as they can.
They're in a great spot to do so because adapting is still level 4, still has not backed. You look at what Sanguine has on their resets, both Panatom and Shinto walking in with boots 2, which is a big power spike because you get a whole lot of movement speed and a little bit of power on those boots as well. It's not a huge amount, but it's a lot better than, say, what Big Man Tings has with just boots 1 having less movement speed and no power at all.
Right.
Radiance make the right call. You can't just defend for the sake of defending. You got to defend intelligently in a spot where you could actually make a play happen, actually get the buff for yourself or win a fight. That's an unwinnable fight for Radiance, so they wisely give it up.
What do we think about this Poseidon out of the mid lane? I mean, we've seen Twig, I think, have great games with the Poseidon, maybe reliant on the setup of the rest of the team around him. Maybe he falls to some of the same issues that your boy Zeus has, and that, you know, if you can get your ult out and you do some great damage, but maybe easy to dive into there on the backline.
Listen, Dave, of the 3 brothers in Greek mythology, Zeus has it the worst, man. No mobility.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
Oh,
we're not talking about
what
Zeus.
am I doing here?
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing. That was a rookie mistake by you, and I'm going to let you get away with this one. But next time you bring up Zeus, I will be ranting for a long period of time. You should be ready for that. But Poseidon is one of those gods that is really item dependent a lot of times in the meta. Think back to the double pen meta. He saw a little bit less play there because neither of those pen items that a lot of people were going, either Deso or Divine, had any sort of MP5. Poseidon being so mana hungry really demands something like Doom Orb being in the meta, and with it kind of back in prevalence again, it just synergizes really well with his kit. Getting that extra movement speed on movement speed is always really good, and Poseidon's passive lends itself to that. The high power, the high MP5, all of that kind of sets Poseidon up pretty well for a position in the meta.
Well, small skirmishes, Wrong You will plug down some damage onto Cyclone Spin. Red buff has respawned now on the Radiant side of the map, and as such, Panatom immediately makes his way over. Aurora here as well, BMT adapting. Blink hit for Panatom, he's found one with the 9 turns blessing. Excavate rolls through, Big Man Tings drops down the crack, and he's received the Scarab's blessing as well. And purely based on damage and utility trade, and now the red buff, Sanguine come out ahead.
Really love the idea by Sanguine. Wrong, you got the beads from Big Man Tings earlier on in mid, and so that means that Panatom knows that he's free to do the full CC chain onto the Poseidon, but with Aurora's ultimate there, it not only gives you the buff of if you die, you come back, but it also cleanses any CC when you cast it, so that pin ends up not mattering nearly as much for Panatom. That combo very, very potent between Erlong and Thoth. Very easy setup for the mid lane Shinto, who lands everything, just not quite enough damage yet in the kit in order to get the kill.
That's a great point as well. We talk about needing some setup for big man Tingst. Obviously, Shinto will love a little bit of extra setup in his lane as well. We've seen Shinto, I think, excel on this Thoth pick. And really, Thoth, I think, in general, has started to see a small rise in play here at the SPL level. I mean, the ability to sit back and just pour out damage. I know Ra has been a popular pick for similar reasons as well. It's kind of a different take, I suppose, Aggro, if you think about it, on the Erlong-Ra combination. It's same idea, I guess. You get the long-range snipe damage down from Shinto, so definitely something Sanguine will be happy about. All things considered, though, Sanguine have been pulling away most of the red buffs, and they have that first blood online. Radiance have kept themselves in at only around 500 gold behind here, 7 and some change minutes into the game. But I think the real worrying trend here is that Shinto's got himself a 2-level lead already over Big Man Tings.
And Thoth is one of these gods that snowballs so effectively because his damage is just phenomenal once he gets ahead. A big reason why I'm happy to see more Thoth, maybe not when I'm playing against him, but overall I think he's just a strong mage right now because of his passive. All of the flat pen options have been nerfed very, very consistently. All of the Divine Ruin, Spear of the Magus, and Spear of Desolation, now 10 flat pen. Thoth gets 15 flat pen from his passive for free. That is huge to get that back, and it means that while everyone else is building less flat pen, Thoth gets it for free.
Mito half HP Aurora as well. Panatom has eaten the Kraken, and Big Man Tings puts himself on the board. I guess that's the problem, Aggro. If you're consistently invading these red buffs, it's an easy read maybe at that point for Radiance to have the answer if you know that Sanguine are going to be there at a designated time.
And it's very, very difficult for Panatom to survive that kind of all-in. I mean, that regurgitate is so annoying for Erlong Shen to deal with. Just means that he can't use that 72 transformations anymore. And then after that, Kraken comes through. Panatom had a very good ultimate. Doesn't use it to taunt because he doesn't want to make sure Adapting's landing everything. But he uses it just for the damage mitigation that you get while you're channeling the heal that's coming through. Maybe if he was slightly earlier, he could have gotten that heal off in time, but I think he's just dead if you're getting double ulted in that situation. Got close enough to almost surviving.
There's a pull back in from Aurora onto Rongyu, and look at the whirlpool damage there for Big Man Tiggs onto Rongyu. If the Kraken was ready, you might have a little extra damage there. But that allows Big Man Tiggs to catch up just a little bit here in the mid lane, level 9 to Shinto's level 10, so I think good heads-up play there out of Radiance. And you know, in picks and bans, I'm glad we kind of move over to Benji here as well. I think Cthulhu's been an interesting conversation point in that for so long, he was so oppressive, I think, out of that long lane, or the short lane, rather. Maybe some changes, maybe some prioritization by enemy teams has got him in a spot where it's still worth picking, but not in the spot where, you know, we had seen him for a while at the beginning of Phase 2.
Still think he fits a lot of compositions pretty well, and in this one for Radiance, I think he makes a lot of sense because Khepri is not the type of Guardian that can often be the first one in. He is not an initiator by any means, and Cthulhu can be, especially when Benji goes something like Blink. It gives you the option of just Blink Descent into Madness. Just Blink ult right away, because that dash takes a while to go off. It's not particularly fast. You can react to it, Shinto can dash away, things like that. If Shinto, even if he long dashes, I don't know if you get out of range of that Cthulhu ult knockup if he's right next to you when he first starts to ult. That's going to be a big initiation key here for Radiance. And then you need someone who can be in the front line, who can take a lot of punishment and not be forced back right away, because so much of frontlining in the SPL level is tank switching properly. Solo laner goes in, takes half their HP, walks back, support walks forward, so on and so forth. Khepri really doesn't want to be in the front line at any given time unless we feel like we can get a pick. He's really more of a pick-oriented Guardian than an initiation Guardian. With someone like Cthulhu, who just doesn't need to switch out of tanking a whole lot of times, and even if he does, in this case, you've got Khepri ult, I think he's the perfect sort of tanky Guardian to help Radiance's weakness by picking Khepri of not having an initiator.
That's right, the Scarab's Blessing is going to be important to follow throughout this game as well. Then the wonder, of course, is, how difficult it is to burn down this Cthulhu. You wonder if Wrongyou or somebody else on Sanguine maybe feels like they have to move in to a little extra damage right off the top there. Aurora working his way around the right-hand side here. They have been kind of poking and prodding here, looking for something onto Wrongyou, but instead it's Wrongyou who's found the opening engagement. Shinto hits his shot, but doesn't get the kill. There's a 9 turns blessing, but the Scarab's Blessing will keep adapting alive for the moment. Panatom's still on the hunt, but instead it's going to be the Harpies for him. Benji still doing some trading with Wrongyou and Yarkor. The Cthulhu will make it out alive.
As will Panatom, really close though by Shinto to finding that kill past Aurora's ultimate, nearly caught adapting and Aurora off guard with the amount of damage that he was doing. Going back to the old style of building, I was saying that we don't see a lot of the double flat pen anymore, and we don't. Shinto going back to the old tried and true, probably because he's on the Thoth. Again, he's got that built-in flat pen. He's going to be pretty close to the flat pen cap here with this build, which is pretty nuts, all things considered, with how many nerfs those flat pen options have taken. It's why he's doing so much damage to the squishies right now. Flat pen is the best thing that you can buy if you want to hit squishies harder, especially in the early game.
He's absolutely swinging at the moment, enough that he has pulled back what once was a 2-level lead, became a 1-level lead, now right back up to 2 for Shinto out of that mid lane. Sunder is the word I was looking for. Wonder if Wrongyou maybe feels like he needs to work into a Sunder to deal with Benji later on here into this game, especially if you look at Scarab's Blessing and how difficult it is to work through some of that health bar. Over here by the Gold Fury, though, these are important fights to look at. Neither Cyclone Spin nor Netrioid have really pulled a massive lead, 1-level lead for Cyclone Spin at the moment. Maybe that's why we see a slightly slower bit of play around the Gold Fury.
It's really just going to be difficult for either team to get enough of a window because both teams have pretty solid steal potential, but that also means that both teams have pretty solid secure potential. Kraken and Final Judgment, both fantastic secure tools, so it really is going to be very, very key to get mages off the board early on in this game. Normally, as it goes into the late game, we look for teams eliminating hunters because those are the ones who can DPS objectives and actually threaten the objective more than securing it come late game. I think mages are going to be more important maybe throughout this entire game. Thoth DPS on objectives, not good, as what you could expect for a traditional mage. But Poseidon, maybe the best traditional mage at DPSing objectives because of the Trident stim and how much damage that does over a longer period of time.
Whoa, engagement on the big man Tings. He uses his beads here. Oh, and the well-timed Aegis. Aurora, quick on the trigger. On the Scarab's Blessing, the Kraken moved away by Panatom. There's a knock-up as well from Wrongyou. Neither of these teams, aggro, shying away from engagements. Wrongyou sends a Hail Mary right down the mid lane. But look at this response by Sanguine. Gold Fury started up by Panatom and Netrioid, and they are melting it quickly. Sanguine lock it down, but Cyclone Spin's got the kill. Netrioid in the crystal will Bifrost his way away. So it's a Fury over to Sanguine, but another kill to Radiance.
Still worth it for Sanguine. You're trading 1 for 1 in that instance, but one of those things, the kill for Radiance, is only going to a few players, not a global gold in experience buff like the Gold Fury.
Oh, Aurora taking solo. Wrongyou pushes him back. No Scarab's Blessing. There's the pull from Wrongyou, but the shell by Aurora, the sidestep's not enough, and Shinto picks up the kill. Watch out around the backside. Comes Yarkor here, adapting, knocked up. A nice stun by Cyclone Spin. We'll finalize the disengage.
Just a little bit too greedy by Radiance, feeling that they needed to get something on the back end of that objective going down. Sanguine very, very keen to defend that tier 1. Shinto, accurate as ever on that Thoth, sets himself up for a nice kill.
And now it's a purple buff invade gone right for Sanguine, and the first tower of the game crumbles. So talk about a gold infusion for the Sanguine squad, to the tune of about 1,500 now. Though Radiance ever scaling, I mean, that was the first time we really saw either of the solo laners get involved, and it was more so Yarkor rotating his way over. So we haven't really seen the impact of Cthulhu just yet in these fights, but Benji able to do some good damage to that solo tier 1 tower, and might force Sanguine into an interesting spot if it falls soon.
This is a really good pace for Sanguine to be keeping right now. Their team composition just really is going to be difficult to deal with once they start to group, because Radiance, we've already covered how difficult it will be for them to initiate. It's really all on Benji in order to get that done. Is he going to be able to withstand this damage from the Thoth in particular right now? I don't think he can. He's got no dedicated magical defense quite yet. And if I'm Sanguine and I'm checking the builds, I see that Benji has gone Gaia into Breastplate. And I know that Shinto is the same level as this Cthulhu, has double flat pen done, and is working towards probably a Charon's, if I had to guess, based on where he is in the build. I'm saying let's group up, and let's try and abuse this early lead that we have. We have a relic advantage right now in every single role. I think that they should be grouping up and looking for things like Pyromancer early because of the start that Shinto has.
And I guess the looming threat of adapting, diving on to Shinto, prompts him to move over into that shell. We've started to see this become slightly more popular. Netrioid follows the same route here. Shell for him. Small engagement onto Yarkor, adapting close by, so a Cyclone Spin. Axe connects from range. Here's a Regurgitate down as well. Adapting leaps on in. Yarkor tanking so much damage, but he might end up going down, and it's Cyclone Spin who gets the kill, but Shinto from over the wall snipes down the Bakasura. It's a 1-for-1 trade as the final judgment rolls on through. Mid laners doing battle in the blue buff pit, but it's Radiance who are re-engaging on the right.
Shinto in trouble. Bede's already down. Cyclone finds the axe and finds another kill for Radiance. They've got to be worried because their Phoenix in left is toast.
Yeah, wait, Sanguine just need to delay the backs here, and it won't even matter as Netrioid is locked down the left side Phoenix. Radiance have to get something else. Maybe it's Wrong You as the follow-up kill here. Cyclone Spin connects with the axe, and another kill will fall, this time to Big Man Tings. But the minions pouring down that left-hand side. That is an 18-minute Phoenix for Sanguine.
And it's the far Phoenix, too. Sanguine or Radiance need to secure this Fire Giant if they want to make this trade worth it. But they don't have Kraken coming up. Yarkor's coming back. I don't think they can do this, Dave.
Panatom is here. He's gotten the pin onto Cyclone Spin. 9 turns Blessing comes out. Panatom trying to disengage from the fight. Benji goes big here. A roar into the Scarabs. Blessing will stay alive on the back end, but not until Yarkor chases him down. There's the up down, and Panatom will fall to adapting on the backside. Radiance, what a gutsy call. They trade out a roar for Panatom. Probably call that worth.
And now it's Adapting who's going to get stunned out. Netrioid still coming, still has his ultimate. No beads for Adapting, doesn't even need the Through the Realms. Yarkor is just a space-creating machine. And don't forget that that's how all of this started, was an overcommit onto this King Arthur by Radiance on the right-hand side. They needed all 5 members there in order to kill him, but Netrioid was happy to just keep on pushing. That extended the Sanguine Gold lead. And then Radiance, when you're in that moment where you know that you have lost your Phoenix, it's already gone, it's down to half HP, no one's even started their backs yet, no one is going to be able to stop Netrioid from getting it.
Right.
You feel like you have to make a play in order to make that worth it. You need to find something, but all it does is keep them on the hook, keeps them on the line, and Sanguine then ends up getting even more on the back end, especially if they can secure the zone.
Well, suddenly this game has been ignited after a slower start, 19 minutes in, and we are flying here. Wrong You gobbled up by the Kraken as Big Man Tings will pick up his 3rd of the game. And Radiance might just take a deep breath on that.
And this has got to be something that Wrong You in particular has to be a little bit more ready for. Clearly, Sanguine has watched the recent Radiance games, and they watched what this composition did to Ghost. It was entirely predicated on Aurora plucking a tank, using that Sunder, and blowing them up. That's what this Radiance comp is designed to do. I just don't know that Wrong You has built well enough to withstand that. I love the Onis, I love the tank boots, but he needs something like a Spirit Robe in order to prevent that from happening every time.
Radiance starting up the Oni Fury once more. It's Yarkor who will ult Cyclone Spin in the backline. Netrioid has gotten an ultimate as well, this time onto Benji. Shinto deletes him upon re-entry to the atmosphere. Look at the root down onto Aurora. He has to use the Scarab's Blessing, but right on the other end of it is just more damage. The taunt right back in, and Panatom grabs the kill. How about the knock-up onto Adapting, but he saved his leap, and the Excavate is there. Panatom stays alive. Big Man Tings is the one who finally gets the kill onto Yarkor, but Panatom keeps himself alive and limps away.
Man, Wrong You. Someone's
from
buying
Wrong
Wrong You dinner. I guess it's Panatom because he just got his life saved by a beautiful play coming out of the Hercules. Radiance just get a little bit too spread out. It's exactly what Radiance need Benji to do. Get into the back line, but you see how much space there is between Benji and the nearest Radiance member, and that's why this Heimdall pick is so difficult for Radiance to deal with, because instead of messing around, running away, letting Benji ult, Netrioid just sends him off, sends him on a trip, and then there's no way for Radiance to get past the staunch front line from Sanguine. An easy fire giant for them after the fact. Love the way that Netrioid played that fight. Love how Shinto made sure that we are all in committing to killing Benji, because if we do, how does Radiance start fights against us? The answer is they don't.
And and that's a good moment. Maybe there's this fallacy, maybe in my thinking, some others, that you see a Cthulhu, you have to buy a Sunder, upgraded Sunder. That's been the mindset for a little while here in Sanguine, maybe showing a little bit of the opposite. I think builds definitely come into account. As you point out, it is the Charon's coin locked in for Shinto. He'll be melting through that Void Stone and a little of the extra magical defense that Benji has. Instead, it's Aurora who's the one who picks up the Sunder. Yarkor as well. I mean, if we're going to continue this thread about the solo lane and the relative impact build-wise, whatever it may be, Yarkor are 2-2-2. I don't know if that does justice to what this King Arthur has been able to do in the backline of Radiance.
It rarely does, because Yarkor is almost always the guy creating infinite space for this team. He's just so dominant on picks like this. It's just one of those things that you feel like you can't give Shinto Hell or Merlin or Persephone or anything like that. And then it's, then Yarkor just gets to pick Amma or King Arthur every single game, and it just makes his job a whole lot easier. He is so comfortable on this pick, and he's had a fantastic game so far in Game 1.
I think it's interesting, that's when Benji, I think, looks his best as well, and the Amaterasu's, the King Arthurs of the world. Not that his Cthulhu is anything to scoff at either. I mean, at 0, 1, and 3, he's definitely found some worth in this game. But I think maybe in the future, Radiance could consider pivoting back to something a little bit more along the lines of the King Arthur, the Amaterasu's here. We're looking at a 23-minute right side Tier 2 tower. The left side Phoenix has respawned for Radiance. So at least for the moment, the Radiance base is somewhat safe. Now you're just wondering how the siege looks. Still, Fire Giant buff on 4 out of 5 members for Sanguine for about the next minute and 45.
Two things surprise me. I'm surprised that Radiance, or Sanguine rather, isn't grouping up on that weakened left Phoenix. I think that's where they should have really be spending the majority of their effort to knock that back down. And I'm surprised that Radiance is willing to defend this Tier 2 when they're already down 6k gold. It is delaying Sanguine a whole lot. They did not do a good job of pushing up the waves in order to siege with them. That amount of time, that was 40 seconds that Sanguine just stood around at the Tier 2 because they didn't push the wave initially in order to start the siege. They probably thought that Radiance wasn't going to defend the Tier 2. By them showing up, it wastes 40 seconds of that Fire Giant buff. I don't think Sanguine got enough out of this buff in order to really maximize their chance of winning this game. I would have vastly preferred to see them group up on that left side, shove in that weakened Phoenix, while Radiance was still down a good amount of gold and had 4 or 5 Fire Giant buffs to fight into.
Yeah, especially with the FG coming up in the next couple of minutes. Those fire waves would have bought a good bit of extra space for Sanguine once that objective starts to swing around and respawn. We have reached the point, though, 25 minutes into the game, where you expect adapting to be melting down some of the damage, or the health bars, rather, of the Sanguine backline. 1, 2, and 4, he's participated in 5 of the 8 kills. But I think Sanguine have shown that they have the answer, at least up to this point, of this Bakasura that's consistently diving on the back of their team. It seems like adapting has been having to run away maybe more than he's been running in.
Hasn't gotten a lot of damage off, but to be fair to him, neither has Panatom.
Yarkor locked into the Whirlpool here. Aurora in behind Benji, who's still quite large, half HP. Cyclone Spin soloed over in the mid lane, so now the Uller is down. Suddenly Sanguine have a 5v4. I don't know if they were expecting Aurora. Scarab's blessing on himself yet again, adapting into the backline, but wouldn't you guess it, he has to leap himself away. 5v3 as Sanguine look towards the left side Phoenix.
And this is without Fire Giant. It already fell off. Sanguine, if they had it, I think could end here. But without that little bit of sustain, they probably are going to have to settle for some
Kraken.
pieces.
No Kraken for big man Tings. That definitely lowers some of the chances here for Radiance, but he's still doing plenty of damage. Beads used by the Poseidon. On the backline, Aurora, Benji, BMT. They've gotten about half HP on 4 out of the 5 members of the Sanguine offense here. Mid lane Phoenix safe for the moment. And it looks like Sanguine don't want anything else to do with it, and they'll back away.
Little surprised. I think Sanguine... I think it's worth it for a frontliner to die, for Sanguine to get that mid Phoenix. The reason that they're backing up is because their front line just gets a little bit too weak from trading aggro of that Phoenix. And I just don't think they need to be that worried. As you said, no Kraken for big man. One frontliner probably dies to get that mid Phoenix, but you look at what's happened instead. They reset after trying to go for it. It's now a full 5-on-5. Yes, someone from Radiance has to push out left, but otherwise they aren't that much worse for
Fire
wear
minions.
after all of that. That is, I think that Sanguine missed an opportunity.
Well, they want to take this opportunity around the FG. Still normal, not enhanced for the next 3 minutes. Fire minions pouring down the left-hand side. That'll start to do a little bit of damage. You can see one team or the other starting to ping that out. Fire minions will make their way in. Adapting backs himself off. Sanguine will realize this in a moment. Could see an opening for an engage.
They've seen Adapting now on this fire wave, so right away, Rongyu going to pull it. But if Radiance can just delay for about 2 minutes here, that would mean that this Fire Giant would become enhanced. With this pacing, I don't know if they'll get that opportunity.
The Arcor is going to get pulled in right into the Kraken. The King Arthur nearly deleted, but he stays alive. Now Benji back to the FG that Sanguine have still pulled here, and Sanguine lock this one in. Goodbye to Benji, as he will come crashing back down to earth. He stays alive. The Titan rather, in on the Fire minions. And Sanguine are going to get the FG back off, and now maybe regroup under the mid Phoenix.
And that idea from Radiance to go with the exact same strategy, let's Kepri pluck the tank, and then all in them with Kraken, just not going to work on Yarkor because Yarkor has bought beads. And he just insta-beads, made sure he didn't get CC chains, still took a large chunk of his health bar, but that's not enough. In order to make that strategy work, you've got to kill the tank, especially if it's the solo later with teleport who could rejoin the fight at any given time. As soon as that all-in doesn't work from Radiance, they are in trouble of losing the game, and that's why they have to back up, give Sanguine the space in order to confirm that FG.
Well, as if anyone is surprised, Shinto on top of not only the net worth charts, but the damage charts by about 3 or so thousand as well. Cyclone Spin has done a sneaky amount of damage, started to build up in this game, and look at the build he's gone for. Cyclone has much more ability-based, if not almost exclusively ability-based on this Uller. So you connect an axe, and suddenly some member of Sanguine has taken a good chunk of their health, something I think Sanguine have to be aware of.
And this is a big power spike for him. He just finished off that Atalantis. He needed that 20% pen badly. It's going to help him quite a bit on all-ending these tanks off Aurora's pluck.
God, Aurora just makes the mistake of standing there, and Shinto, with that Spear of the Magus, takes him down quite low. Benji dashes in, has to use his ultimate, and Sanguine say, okay, we'll back ourselves away. That's another big engage utility that's now missing from the Radiance defense.
And now how does Radiance start fights? They have to wait for Sanguine to come to them. I think they've lost their really only good engage tool.
Oh no, Adapting rooted in. He's now half HP thanks to Shinto. The mid lane Phoenix is no more. Right side Phoenix looking like it's going to suffer a similar fate once Netrioid locks down the last bit of damage. Left side Phoenix being looked at by the Fire minions. Adapting will rotate over, keep that one alive, but Sanguine likely not all that worried about it, so just walk in and get it done nonetheless. It's going to be the full 3 Phoenixes down for Sanguine. Radiance might have to look for an engage here. The Kraken with nothing. Big Man Tings instead has taken so much damage. Must have been Shinto from the back. Rongyu works his way in as Banatom shuts down the Poseidon. Sanguine, 5 members strong, can just walk their way into the Titan room at this point. It's going to be at its squishiest point. 5 members still with the FG buff, but they will slow play it until the minions are here.
Need some minions, need to wait for some big cooldowns. Netrioid's ultimate coming back up. That could help separate one of these tanks from their backline.
Rongyu, first one in, knocks back Benji here. No ultimates for Radiance to defend their Titan, adapting, still lurking for maybe one miracle play to turn this game around. Around the side goes Panatom. You get a good taste of the damage that this Titan will be facing here in just a moment. Netrioid and Shinto from over the wall, pouring into the damage. The Titan being evaporated here, and it's only Rongyu who's still on it, but the rest of Sanguine walk on in, and in 31 minutes, Sanguine take game one.
Sanguine made that one look a little bit more difficult than I think they needed to. Their team fight was phenomenal all game long. I felt like they were in control of every single engagement between these two teams. Yep. I think their macro play, though, the way that Sanguine played the map was a little bit worse than what we normally see from them. I think that they gave Radiance more opportunities than they really should have. I think they need to clean that up as they keep going in the set, because we've seen what Radiance can do if you give them enough opportunities. Remember how they nearly came back and beat Ghost in an unwinnable game for them. They nearly won that one. So that is the only concern right now for Sanguine. Otherwise, they are cruising right now, man. Shinto and Panatom are working together so well.
The woes continue for this Radiant squad. I think Big Man Tings, all things considered, put a decent game together on this Poseidon. Adapting didn't quite hit the mark, I think, that he was looking for on that Bakasura. But the positives, the big check marks here, are that Sanguine, maybe some missteps once or twice, but ultimately get the win nonetheless. We'll take a quick break. Right after that, we'll break down game one.
Well, Sanguine take care of Radiance rather handily there in that very first game. But I'm back here in the SPL. Feels good to be back with you here chatting, enjoying some excellent SPL gameplay. Mifflin is here on the desk with me, Miff. And this one, I know it was gold close throughout, but I don't know, something about the way that Sanguine were setting the pace and deciding where the fights were going to happen and looking for invades. To me, it kind of felt like they were always in control of this one.
It's because for the first 18 minutes, Sanguine was always the aggressor, always looking for that red buff invade. They were setting the pace, even though Radiance was able to match it just a little bit. I think the first real disparity we saw start to grow was at exactly the 18-minute mark. Radiance make a concentrated effort to shut down the Soul Laner while trading out their left side Phoenix. They do eventually get a tier 1 tower and the Soul Laner's life, and then they move to the Fire Giant, lose an engagement there, lose the fight, lose the objective, and then after that, it was all Sanguine.
Yeah, that Fire Giant fight, that whole right side play was curious to me from Radiance. It was a heavy commit to kill Yarkor, and that took forever to eventually get the kill, and Netroid traded it out excellently. And then on the Fire, it was just such an odd call, right? Where it felt as though it certainly was not going to be a guaranteed objective. It didn't seem as though they were so sure about if they wanted to fight or get off of the objective. You said going into this set that you thought Radiance's problem was their late game shot calling, and I wasn't so sure, but I don't know, man. In this game, I really feel like you kind of nailed it, Myth. It didn't feel like that late game shot calling was at the level we'd come to expect from this team.
And I want to clarify, it's not exactly that the calls being made are bad in of themselves, it's whether or not the team as a whole is willing to follow it. As you said, on the Fire Giant, it didn't seem like they knew whether or not they wanted to take the fight or stick to the objective itself, and when there is that level of haziness in decision-making, that's where you start to see some issues. It doesn't matter if a call is bad. All 5 members in a competitive scene have to follow that call. I don't care if the call is to walk into the enemy fountain, as long as everyone's doing the same thing, that's the best shot at winning the game. And it seems like Radiance, just maybe a lack of trust. Yeah, it could be a projection here, but it seems like they're not really willing to follow the call if a call is being made at all.
Well, you saw Shinto's damage numbers, nearly 7,000 above anybody else on that Thoth. We haven't even talked about how well Sanguine played here. It's been more about the things where Radiance went incorrectly. But this is a new Sanguine we've seen these last few weeks when they are confidently stepping into the early game, when they're being the aggressors on the map. Wrong you on picks like this Hercules. Panatom back on things like the Erlang Shen, and not so much the Nemesis. They've looked so much better, and Shinto has made this Thoth look like you need to ban it against him. He has played it time after time these last couple of weeks, and he's looked great on it, even in their losses.
And he plays around that Thoth pick incredibly well. Against a team comp that has a Khepri on it, you don't want to play around all your damage going into one target, which is why in every single elongated team fight, Shinto is poking separate members down 60%, 70% on every member of Radiance, which means that all of them are within the kill threshold of the backline dive that Sanguine is bringing, which forces Aurora into a position where he has to make a decision. Who do I want to revive? Everyone needs it. Well, tough luck, you only got one.
A great cohesive team comp there from Sanguine. Can they do the same thing in the picks and bans here for game number 2? Well, we're about to find out. It will be Radiance in that first pick spot this time around, so a chance perhaps for some adjustments to happen here, Myth. And it's not as if Sanguine got anything, and I know that I mentioned, maybe you banned the Thoth here, but really, they had Erlang Shen in this draft, they had Heimdall, they had Thoth, they had some good picks, but I don't know if any of those are picks you're banning over some of the other really top tier stuff you have to get rid of. I think it's really likely Sanguine could come in with a very similar draft if they want to.
They could, but Radiance going ahead and addressing the Erlang Shen directly. They seem to think that Panatom was a huge threat, and I tend to agree with them there. Panatom setting up that first blood in mid, and then constantly looking for that aggression in the jungle. Take away this one piece, and you're going to be able to take away a lot of what Sanguine was able to do in the early game. But we know that that's not Panatom's only pick. It's not his even most aggressive pick potentially. He could move in towards the Thor. We've seen him play Tsukiyomi. We know he's got a Susanoo. There are a lot of tools that Radiance are going to have to address if they want to ban out the enemy jungler, but it tells me that maybe they're worried about that sustained damage in the team fight, and Erlang Shen has a pretty decent matchup in a Cthulhu if Radiance want to reprise that pick.
And just an insane amount of control, right? The knock-up, the root, the taunt. I think that's got to be part of what they want to remove, too, is this sort of center of CC that enables a King Arthur Hercules pick to flank it, right? Where they're a little bit less reliable in that crowd control. They're at the SPL level. People are hitting push-pull almost all the time. We're catching up on these bans now. Persephone, Yamoja, been banned away, Cupid. These are all fairly standard bans. As far as I'm concerned, this Erlang Shen is the only one that you can consider a bit of an outlier in these. And even still, there's a lot of valuable stuff up. Sanguine went out of their way to make sure that Cyclone couldn't play things like the Freya or some of these mage ADCs that he's liked. They might have to spend their final ban on that and leave a lot of good stuff still open.
Yeah, now Rom makes its way through the entirety of the ban phase, the next best hunter, the last top-tier hunter available. I'd be surprised to see Radiance stray away from it here. We know that Cyclone is very adept at this pick. He's a pioneer on it. He was the one who really started off that new playstyle of Rom of initiating the team fight with your ultimate and then using it to poke and work your way in. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they go here. Now Sanguine get to choose the best of the last remaining frontliners. Hercules, the support. Yeah, that's a good one. It'll control the lane, the best aggressive support outside of Yamoja, and it's got a decent matchup in a Rom. That role isn't nearly as versatile a tool to escape as a traditional leap would be. If he gets hit by Hercules' pull, he's going all the way back.
Yeah, he'll be in some trouble once Wrongyu starts to get aggressive the same way that we saw in Game 1. So I wonder if that has to be part of this game plan now for Radiance, to be ready for Sanguine to potentially come in and look for the early game aggression, those repeated red buff invades like we saw in that first game. And Radiance were eventually able to come over and stop those. I don't want to make it sound like it worked 100% the whole game. Radiance did start to adapt, but I think that was part of what had this game feeling like it was so out of Radiance's control. Now, Netroid going to come back to this Heimdall. This is what he used to split push over in left lane, steal that Phoenix while everyone else was over in right. And now the Khepri coming back in for a Roar. How do you like this one in a world where the Thoth is still out there for Shinto to grab? They'll have the same problem.
It is a similar problem, but it comes down to execution. That Khepri had a lot of saving grace plays for Radiance. Aurora was keeping them alive and afloat throughout the early game very well. It's just once they do get to that late game team fight, that's where Thoth will really strive and really make his strives against this Khepri. But with Ra coming through in addition with the Khepri, the Abduct is going to get huge value. Searing Pain should be easy to land. And Sanguine decided to take away the Cthulhu. I've decided to give this god the moniker of win harder. And if Sanguine's going to do exactly what they did last game, which is control the pace, Cthulhu's definitely going to fit that style.
And Yarkor is a Cthulhu stan. We know this about the guy, so he certainly likes to pick it when it is available. I do just think this gives Radiance the opportunity to take a bit of a look towards Shinto, and I don't just mean banning this Thoth, but you can come back around and ban something like the Merlin, which you know that he likes to go to when things like the Persephone are no longer available to him. This is a good chance for Radiance to maybe limit some of what that mid laner can do. Not even a little bit surprised to see this Thoth ban coming through in a world where they chose to prioritize the Cthulhu. Even though there were still other really good solo picks, like the Wukong, you could fall down to it. I don't think that you'd be feeling as though you missed out on a whole lot.
Yeah, I think Wukong is a pick that, despite having a rough patch last week, is still highly valuable out of that lane. Soul Eater, again, amazing item. Works really well with Wukong's kit. But banning out the Thoth, I agree wholeheartedly with Radiance. I would be surprised if they decide to leave the Merlin available, but we still know that Sanguine have a Raijin, and that might be a better ban here, just considering that Merlin's a little bit easier to lock down. But instead, it's going to be the Hebo. They're worried about that damage output coming out from the mid laner, but with a Khepri, I think that Hebo might be something you're fine letting through. Hebo's Water Hands, incredibly close range. The entirety of his kit puts him in danger. Truth told, so if Khepri's able to find the Abduct, it should result in a free kill, but instead, it is going to be that Hebo ban. And then Panatom, go into this Nemesis. It's a very strong pick. I just don't think it's Panatom's best look.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised that they would ban the Thor with them being the first pick out of those second round of bans, just based on their recent success. You'd think that'd be a Nemesis ban Thor pick, as opposed to the Thor ban Nemesis pick. And now this Wukong ends up in the hands of Benji. So now suddenly, Radiance have this Khepri pick again, which worked for them. They have Cyclone Spin on Raw, which is comfortable. They have this Wukong from Benji. They don't have to worry about the Thoth from Shinto in the middle lane. They don't have to worry about the Erlong Shen from Panatom. He's down to Nemesis. And adapting on the Mercury, which we know he likes to go to when he feels like he needs to hard carry. So far, and this might just be my Radiance fanboy talking, but I like this pick ban phase a lot better from Radiance, helped a bit, I think, by this Nemesis over there for Sanguine.
I agree. This Nemesis pick is what opens up the avenues of success for Radiance, but my concern for Radiance's draft is once they're in the 5-on-5 engagement, how are they looking to win the fight? Sun Wukong diving the backline, being the sole tanky target, having a Mercury to back him up. Mercury is going to have a very hard time. Exactly. It's going to be a Khepri initiation and then raw damage follow-up, but they're lacking a lot in terms of AoE damage as well, whereas Sanguine have picked up another tool that's going to dive the backline incredibly well. Hercules and Cthulhu controlling the core of your backline dive with a Morgan acting as a solo agent inside a stealth. If he finds Cyclone Spin slipping in the jungle, first ability, second ability, and auto attack with Polynomicon, Cyclone's gone. Let me turn into Cthulhu real quick. Now I'm Cthulhu too, and I'm a backline diver in your backline already. I think that Radiance have a very thin margin to play around here. If they get initial fights off well, good for them, but if it starts off in an even state and dances around objectives, I think that's where they're going to struggle.
I think so too. If this ends up in an even 5-on-5 fight, I know Cthulhu has come back down to earth a little bit lately, but not to the point where you want to fight two of them in their old. That's still going to be a big old problem. So this is scary now. I'm thinking in a world where Shinto's able to get value out of base Morgan as a mage first, find that stun into that second ability, and then transform. Now is Cthulhu as well. Especially if this Cthulhu ends up a little bit ahead of Benji, if Yarkor gets out to a lead, suddenly this is a big problem. I know I was initially feeling this Radiance draft, but this Morgan pick from Shinto, I think, turns the whole thing on its head.
It does, man. It really clinches. And he's got a good matchup, not just into Cyclone Spin, but also into Mercury. If Mercury's lurking in your backline, well, he's in your backline and he's squishy. Morgan will blow you up. That's just how it's going to work.
Not going to be an easy one here. Radiance need to bounce back in game number 2, so I'll get it down to Dulcin.
And I think, Aggro, that Radiance in picks and bans have at least given themselves a better chance from game number 1. I like the pivots they've made. I'm echoing a lot of what Finch said. I think starting with adapting is probably a good spot here. We know what Bakasura can do as far as pure damage, but I think adapting now has more engage potential maybe than he did purely on the Bakasura.
Yes, definitely. And Bakasura has no sort of CC at all. Adapting on the Mercury, a lot more CC setup, particularly for big man Tings on the Rob. But with the way that adapting has been playing recently, I mean, Radiance has been slumping. Kennett's tweeted about it himself. He knows that he's not playing to the usual level that people expect from him. And whenever Kennett loses confidence, I think that he really starts to play a little bit more back, loses some of that aggressiveness that you really want out of your jungler. I just don't know if he's going to be enough of an initiator on this pick. It's my main concern with this Radiance comp. They really need adapting to get a lot of fights started for them.
That's a good point. The pick has that potential, but living up to the potential is a whole different question. And then on the other side, I think the nemesis for Panatom has been a hot topic for sure. It's been 10 picks up to this game, so not including this game. It's been picked 10 times, 4-6, so not a winning record, but you know, not blown out of the water. It's won him 4 games, lost him 6. This is an important game, not only for adapting, but I think for both junglers, where Panatom has the ability to kind of turn a corner and maybe put a different spin on this Panatom nemesis conversation.
And it's very, very different than the Erlong Shen from last game, where Erlong is this setup, facilitator. He's going to do great damage on his own. Look at what he did to Cyclone underneath the mid-Phoenix on one of their sieges. But it is much more about getting your team ready and prepared to make plays happen. Nemesis is part of that. Part of it is the team fight presence and target selection and allowing your team to blow up one particular target. But more so, it's a little bit more individual play-oriented, and we'll see if Panatom can match that output that we know Adapting is going to try to do on the Mercury in that same sort of department.
Yeah, it's interesting that both teams, though, you know, the setup of a Mercury compared to an Erlong Shen, I mean, obviously a conversation to be had there, but both junglers kind of opting for what the other had in game number 1, if you want to look at it that way. It is the Cthulhu still, but this time over for Yarkor, one that got shut down pretty handily in Benji's hands in game number 1, and I do like the pivot as well for Benji here. I think I mentioned, you know, I like the King Arthur, I like the Amaterasu, I like the Sun Wukong as well for Benji. I think this gives him kind of a different play style, one that I think he'll make work here or will look maybe better on here in game number 2.
It's just a really difficult pick to lock down, and a lot of times Wukong feels like you can get a mage or a hunter to 15% health, and they often get away with about that much. Since his buffs, I think they get away a lot less. He just feels like he's doing a lot more damage these days.
It does.
But also, you've got things like Rom Snipe on the other end that will help you get that last 10% very, very easily. I love Wukong in conjunction with someone like Rom, where Wukong can dive very freely and not be too worried about getting punished for it, because he can use his ultimate as an escape tool rather than as an all-in tool, because he knows the ROM player, certainly Cyclone Spin in this instance, will end up doing the cleanup for him.
And that's a really good point. I mean, you look at both of the snipes that Radiance have. The ability to pour out damage from range was something, you know, you had in Thoth in game 1 if you're Sanguine, but now Radiance have it twofold. So it's doubly important for Sanguine to be able to find their way deep into the backline, adapting, looking for an early gank. Panatom will make his way over by his red buff, stays alive. Washinto looking to go back, maybe worth casting a line into the water there. But adapting will come up empty-handed. Wrong you. Looking for the pull, well-timed beads from Cyclone Spin, and he'll walk away.
Very close. A bit of game of chicken there between the support for Sanguine and the hunter for Radiance, but good timing by Cyclone. Ends up reading exactly when Rongyu is going to cast that Earthbreaker and ends up escaping because of it. With Aurora in tow, he might have been able to survive no matter what, but better safe than sorry, I suppose. A little bit awkward for him, though, because now Netrioid has a very easy all-in onto this ROM, knowing that he has no beats.
And I think, you know, we've talked about adapting and the playstyle differential. I mean, it's ever so important now for him to make use of the Mercury kit, I guess, the Sonic Boom. You just kind of run down Main Street in one of the lanes, and that's something, obviously, the Bakasura can't quite bring on the other side. And really, if you look at how things went in Game 1, you know, both junglers were kind of sitting on mid, and then the game kind of devolved into these skirmishes around the Fire Giant quickly thereafter. So this is maybe in the first few minutes now that Adapting will be getting his ultimate back soon. Could be time for him to maybe start looking over towards a long lane gank, maybe something over on the solo side before Yarkor gets too tanky, but instead might be looking back towards the mid lane here as well, hoping to keep Shinto on this Morrigan behind.
Really like his itemization choice as well for that exact reason. The Erendite Rush, something that has been both popular and out of favor at times when Mercury's in meta, but against this matchup in particular where Shinto is going to have some stealth, this allows you to find her after she uses that that little bit of stealth to try and get away, and it's just sick on Merc. I mean, it gives you movement speed, gives you power, the CDR.
It's good anyway.
Everything about it is fantastic, but in this matchup in particular, I really like that Adapting is going for it first. And I agree that I want to see him leverage the CDR that he's building. Don't let it just be a little bit of an extra bonus stat. Actually put it to use.
And this time, it's just going to close the gap onto Panatom, who eats the searing pain from Big Man Tings from range. Down comes Benji, and looking like first blood over to Radiance. This one brought to you by Adapting.
Hello.
As Aurora will eat the Scarab's Blessing, or use the Scarab's Blessing, excuse me, onto Adapting, but Yarkor's got the range too. It's a one-for-one trade, but Yarkor locked in, pulled back by Aurora. Shinto in the back as well. He's stealthed up, searching for a target, but instead it's a disengage.
Really, really difficult to handle. Double Cthulhu ult early game. You just don't have the damage to chew through one, let alone two, but Yarkor doesn't get the memo that they need to get out after the ultimates are done, not continue to go in. It ends up making it a 2-for-1 for Radiance, but I like Adapting's target selection in these ganks. He's tried to go for Panatom both times. The first time Panatom was fast enough on the Swift Vengeance to get out of the way. Looked to me like he used one of the two dashes, but ended up getting caught in between the two, because then he only had one dash after the fact. But it's a pretty easy setup there for Adapting. If you could hit the ultimate and then find the special delivery, it is guaranteed that Big Man will hit the snipe. You just toss it right at him and let him rip.
Yep. I love the play that we've seen so far from Radiance. You know, Adapting, that's the first Sonic Boom we've seen that found good value. The first one at least was looking for something in the mid lane, but exactly what we were hoping to see from him. Has been looking towards Shinto a couple of the times here. Still, neither jungler really looking towards either of the outside lanes up to this point here in this game. Both are okay with just letting the solo laners and the hunters farm up.
It's a little bit difficult for Adapting to gank Netrioid effectively between the Bifrost and the Through the Realms. I mean, he just has a lot of options in order to get away. The Gallarhorn knockback is something that you can't forget about either when you're an assassin. It's just, and Panatom has really not been able to be the aggressor at any point. He's really been trying to match the pace set by Adapting in this early game, which is exactly what you want this Mercury to do in this style of matchup. I've loved it.
Whoa! He's found Netrioid off to the side. What an engage there from Adapting. But the ultimate away from the Heimdall will keep him alive. And then Cyclone Spin plugs down a little bit of damage. Can't say he's not trying, as Adapting continuing to set the jungle pace here. 8.5 minutes in. Netrioid now, beads and ult down.
Loved it. Love the way he's playing this early game.
Yep.
It's exactly what we wanted to see from him, and he's executing pretty much perfectly. I think this is a great matchup for him against not only what he's got in the mid lane, as we covered with the Erendite proc, but also against Nemesis, who's really slow-based. Remember that Mercury gets slow immunity whenever he presses 2. That's a huge deal for him. So this Nem really shouldn't be that much of a concern for Adapting in this game, and that's why he's willing to send pressure right at Panatom in a lot of these ganks, is because he has a pretty advantageous matchup there.
And really no surprise, I think, as well. You talk about move speed and rotation. rotations that Shinto and Big Man Tings have both gone. Do more for that first item obviously works well with Ra, but normally the way we see Shinto and the Morgan go here, it's a stun down onto Cyclone Spin. They're just going to wait this one out. The Scarab's Blessing will time out, and in goes the damage, and Netrioid grabs another. Cyclone Spin a bit caught out there, looking for the purple buff, but instead Shinto just roams his way over and helps out get a kill for Sanguine.
It was a great play by Rongyu, caught the dash by Cyclone with that driving strike, and Aurora really has to try and time that Scarab's Blessing perfectly if he wants any hope of saving his ADC's life in that spot. Went a little early, tried his best, ends up Cyclone dies there, but Cyclone's going to die every time he gets that dash caught in a situation like that, unless Aurora rather has an incredible play.
Oh, you can see where Panatom's confidence level stands, feeling like he can try to invade a little bit onto adapting here. This Big Man Tings had to back off. That's definitely the threat. I mean, kind of on cue there that this Morrigan brings, where Big Man Tings sort of rotating with the rest of his team, maybe looking for setup. Obviously, that's what Shinto will do as well. But absolutely has the ability to set up some fights there on his own. So outside of the Erendite, that's kind of an extra layer of concern that Radiance might have to have. I'm waiting to see where adapting will go here, but we'll save the ultimate for maybe a more consistent fight.
They know that there's no ward vision now on bottom left, so you can tell Radiance is hungry to make this snipe play work. They know they only have a few more levels before Panatom picks up beads, and the easy kill potential goes out the window. So I respect their persistence in that attempt, but Sanguine knows what the game plan is. It's been pulled on them a couple times already in this game. No surprise that they're willing to play that one pretty safely around that corridor.
Look at this collapse. 4 members of Sanguine in. Aurora looking for the root downs. Got it onto Rongyu. Adapting has the Sonic Boom charged up. Panatom, the likely target, a small angle. We're playing geometry here for Adapting to weave that one through. Instead, Yarkor wants to get things started. We'll go big on this Cthulhu here. That's a snipe on to Rongyu, though, and Big Man Tings has picked up yet another kill here. 201 on the Raw, and Yarkor pops the ult. Gets not much for it as down goes Rongyu for the first time this game.
Feels like Sanguine just get a little bit baited by this Cthulhu ultimate. Not Yarkor himself this time, but Rongyu, who steps up, ready to try and help. You know, I'm here,
we're
boys.
doing this?
It's the exact same thing. A Kepri pluck directly into raw damage.
Adapting now Sonic Boom onto Yarkor, and that's an abduct right on back. The dash through maybe enough to keep Yarkor alive, but not much longer. Adapting on the board as the solo lane is the target of the aggression this time. Rotation over from Sanguine, though. Benji will be here still. Tier 1 tower is going to end up falling down. 3 members in behind Benji, but the Sun Wukong will walk away.
Love that play from Radiance. Again, they're the ones being the aggressors, and it's Adapting being the aggressor. You could tell he's the one setting the pace, always looking for these ultimates, and Radiance is right there to follow up. Perfect job by Aurora to tank that tower, set up with the perfect CC chain, make sure that Yarkor has nowhere to go, and to die, or to have to back, TP back, insta-die right away, and then have to trudge back to lane, knowing that your tier 1 tower is gone and you've just lost 2 waves worth of farm is not a good feeling for this Cthulhu. And Mifflin was saying that he doesn't think that Cthulhu has a whole lot of options once he falls behind. Not a good spot for Yarkor to be in if that's the case.
That almost rewinds the clock to the original Cthulhu conversation of support versus solo lane, and really the big differentiating factor was, well, solo lane can afford to itemize a little bit differently and won't fall as behind as support sometimes do, and it's kind of the opposite conversation here for Yarkor. Now back-to-back games where Cthulhu has been punished maybe more times than expected. Now maybe a Gold Fury being looked at, more confirmable instant objective damage from Radiance thanks to this Ra. And I love the Death Ball Radiance are looking for a pick before maybe starting the objective.
They've got the sustain to do it, they've got the secure as well.
It's half HP, Sanguine going to show face, Rongyu around to the corner. Rongyu just lurking, Netrioid there as well. Searing Pain not used, well it does get used, not needed though, as Radiance will lock down the Fury, and Sanguine had nothing to say about it.
Yeah, not exactly the world's greatest secure there from Ting. That's always such an awkward feeling as
I mean,
a
it didn't get
mid-laner.
used, right? No way.
You still feel bad, even though your team got the objective, because you know your team like looks at you like, bro, what was that? I mean, we got a little lucky that we ended up getting it. But Radiant still secure the Fury, so no harm, no foul, I suppose, for Ting the Searing Pain being a pretty noticeably late, as Adapting uses that Sonic Boom in mid, ends up not finding anyone this time. But this pace is still good from Radiance. Yep. Group up on objectives, look for fights right after the fact. Don't worry, because we didn't end up using that much on the actual objective itself. Sanguine, we talked about at the very end how it felt like they were always in control of the pacing of game number 1. Right now it's the exact opposite. Radiance has had this game on a leash since minute 1.
And a more tangible gold lead, I think, than what Sanguine had in game 1. While Sanguine were controlling the pace, Radiance now have the gold to back it up. Wrongyou has to dash away. Aurora with the abduct. Snipe no good from big man Ting. ZR-Core rotates over from solo lane. Sanguine have maybe now found a fight that works for him. A double knockup onto Benji, onto Adapting. Panatom will grab himself a kill here. All alone in the backline is Aurora, and Netrioid will snag another. That's when that Radiance started off, but Sanguine are the ones who finish it.
Man, I feel like the SPL needs a binocular sponsorship so I could find out what's happening in the midst of a double Cthulhu ult team fight. I could barely see anything that was going on. I'm sure it was even worse for Radiance because they just get a little bit split up in that engagement, because once you're on the other end of 2 Cthulhus ulting, how do you get back towards your team? Aurora realizes there's no way back for him. An overcommit from Radiance a little bit onto Wrongyou. They end up not getting the kill in the end anyways, which is the worst feeling part for them. And they lose 2 members and a tier 1 tower. Some good news is that they know that they can walk in and secure this this Pyromancer after the fact, but still Sanguine showing some fight still in this team comp.
Uh-oh, Cyclone Spin all alone. Beads out the stun, but he's not long for this world. Benji here to try to save his Hunter as well. Luckily, the Sun Wukong can disengage. But a bit caught out there. Cyclone Spin. Beads used by Netrioid, Adapting just a bit off with the Sonic Boom, and the Bifrost will disengage the remainder of this fight. Cyclone Spin, a bit out of his element there. Just gets pulled back in and killed off by Sanguine.
Overstay, a bad one by Cyclone, because now he's relicless going into this next team fight. Panatom is able to get a whole lot of farm again on this left-hand side. Surprised that he's not continuing to push that tier 2 a little bit, though. I guess with Sanguine's map positioning, they know that even if Radiance rotates over to try and punish Panatom, Sanguine has no recourse to getting some gold back on their side like they did whenever Netrioid was split pushing for that Phoenix in game number 1. Just a little bit of an overextension a couple times now from Radiance has put them in a spot where they were pretty far ahead. Now, getting a lot closer to even in this game, and all of that extra farm for Panatom ended up paying off huge. He's now up 2 levels on Adapting in the jungle.
Yeah, look at that spike downwards, and not only the gold, but the XP department as well. Aurora has reached level 12, hasn't been able to go back and pick up his second relic, whereas Wrongyou has. It's an Ankh ready to go for Wrongyou, so this fight, at least a small advantage over to Sanguine to the tune of 1 relic. Benji's going to use the Summer Cloud to stay alive, but he's going to have to crash down right into the awaiting arms. As the rotation over from Sanguine, not enough to get the kill just yet. Panatom doing plenty of damage here. Oh, and the Scarab's Blessing won't get procced, but Aurora walks over, pops the ultimate, saves the day, and Sanguine have given up a lot on that right-hand side.
Looks awfully similar to exactly the overcommit by Radiance on the ZR-Core in game 1. Just don't know about trying to all-in commit onto the Wukong. Luckily for Sanguine, they don't spend as much time on it as Radiant did. They only lose a tier 1 tower in mid to that push, but both tier 2s in mid and in duo were threatened pretty effectively by Radiance. And that's a great call by Adapting, knowing that if they're going to commit that much to Benji, there's nothing I can really say about it either way. Aurora's really the only one that's necessary. Good communication to tell Benji to come to him and make sure that Benji isn't running straight down towards the Phoenix like a lot of players would. And now Cyclone, by split pushing and not joining the fray at all, was able to continue to get farm without putting himself at risk with his relics down. Coming into this Oni Fury fight, he has both Beads and Aegis up and ready to go.
So does BMT, so does Cyclone Spin as well, so triple beads, triple Ega, squad beads really if you look at Benji, so a lot for Sanguine to burn through here in the tune of survivability. It is upgraded Sunder for Aurora as well. One Cthulhu's tough enough to deal with, how about two? Some sustain keeps Aurora nice and topped off thanks to Big Man Tings here. Oni Fury being looked at. This is a full 5v5 rotation. But maybe smart that Radiance are slow playing it, waiting for the right opening.
Only shells on Sanguine are on the carries. Rongyu's picked up that cursed Ankh once again in order to try and take out this Ra.
That's an early searing pain, but Rongyu just shrugs it off and he's right back into the fight. Here comes Yarkor, here comes Shinto onto the back line. Double Cthulhu swinging away. You gotta be kidding me. Big Man Tings. Oh, he gets the Scarab's blessing procced. Walking away here, but look at the damage pouring down. Adapting does end up pulling back one, but it's only one as a Sonic Boom will turn Yarkor all around. Cyclone Spin picks up the kill. Andy gets to the sky. He's gonna have to drop right back down. Andy stays alive here. Can Panatom get the kill? No, it's Aegis to keep him alive. Shinto does pick up one. Netrioid and Panatom limping away, but Benji can close the gap.
No way that Netrioid's gonna get away with this one. A double kill for Benji. And he's looking for three as Panatom
the heck was
down
that?
to about 200 HP. Just a little bit too many bodies grouped up by Sanguine.
Yeah.
They thought that they were going to be able to keep that fight going perfectly, and I was on their side. I thought that they could for sure, but just I think they got body blocked a little bit against one another. They couldn't get to exactly where Aurora and everyone was, and Radiance are able to escape with low health bars. That sets them up for this Fire Giant.
Looks like they can do it. Aurora's taken barely any damage, and they've gotten it down to half HP. Benji is wasting the time of Rongyu. Yarkor is making his way over. Might make it just in time here to try to steal things away. Aurora half HP, Fire Giant a little bit lower than that. Yarkor trying to walk his way in. The healing, the secure from Radiance is there. Aurora might fall for it. He sure does. Adapting makes his way out. Absolutely worthwhile for Radiance. What a call.
Great idea, but now Panatom looking for Adapting. He dashes in and gets the kill mid. Sonic Boom, what a play by Panatom in order to grab that one and at least take another Fire Giant buff away from Radiance.
Well, now finally, the Fury never ended up getting taken before. It's Oni Fury being looked at. Big Man Tings needs to be careful here. Misses his one. That might have killed off Panatom, but the sustain keeps him in it. Yarkor double stun there. Thank you, Mantle of Discord. Big Man Tings turns around the damage and Yarkor goes down. Another overstay on the right-hand side, but does buy time for the Oni Fury for the other three members of Sanguine to lock down.
So 3 Fire Giant buffs on Radiance, but Sanguine gets Oni Fury. It's really a matter of if Radiance can just get these 3 Tier 2 towers off the map. I think it's a little bit ambitious to expect Radiance to grab the towers and a Phoenix at this point in the game, but if they can just get these 3 Tier 2 towers down, remember they're 1,500 gold spread across your team. Basically, each player gets 300 gold for each Tier 2 that you take down. So you could get a good chunk of cash, nearly 5K ahead if you're Radiance, if you can get all 3 of these Tier 2 towers down. That only puts you up about 8,000 gold, which is not enough to guarantee the next Fire Giant. I often think about 20 to 22 minute Fire Giants. The goal shouldn't be to end the game. The goal should be to guarantee our next fire for whenever it comes up. Let's get far enough ahead to make sure that we have a near guarantee of the next one. I don't know that Radiance can do that with this Fire Giant, but they can put themselves in a very advantageous position in this game.
We've already seen a lot of Big Man Tings, what you expect from this Ra. The sustainability has been definitely worthwhile. Some anti-heal for Sanguine, the Ankh invested in as well. Has found some value. I mean, that previous fight looked like it was going Sanguine's way through and through, and wasn't necessarily the sustain that won. It did help, don't get me wrong. But some sidesteps, some small outplays maybe down the stretch gave Radiance a bit of an advantage there. Maybe open the door for the Fire Giant just down the road. It is the Tier 2 tower in the long lane, though, finally finished off. Now, mid lane Tier 2 being looked at. Remember, Radiance, they didn't necessarily overstay, but they did a good job of delaying Sanguine on some of their Fire Giant pushes in situations just like this. Where Panatom maybe starts to lurk and look for the engage.
Would have liked to see Sanguine push up that right wave a little bit more. If Radiance are able to get this tier 2 without a whole lot of resistance from Sanguine, it should be pretty easy for them to transition over and grab the right tier 2 with that wave so close.
Here comes Panatom lurking in the shadows. Sonic Boom! It catches 2 or 3 members of Sanguine. Adapting just walks away on the other end of it, though. Cyclone Spin eats some big damage from Yarkor as well, but they'll stand in the nice healing circle. Netroid has finally gotten the kill over to onto Aurora. Cyclone Spin looking for some snipes here. Adapting, taken low, taken down by Shinto. Sanguine, they've held strong beneath the tier 2 tower. They'll get another. Panatom has started to come alive. A killing spree for this nemesis, and Cyclone Spin will likely be the last one on the menu.
I don't know if Radiance can withstand. Whoa, that's a huge kill for Cyclone to get onto Yarkor, because Yarkor had TP. I think there's a chance that Sanguine could have ended with Yarkor up, because they just use him to tank a little bit. They back, he backs, TP's back in underneath the Phoenix. A massive play from Cyclone Spin may have just extended this game for Radiance.
That was a brilliant engage from Adapting, but he just kind of had to walk away after that. It is Benji still trying to defend the mid lane Phoenix as best as he can. Aurora back in the fight as well. Benji has almost completely killed off Shinto and will get the kill on the back end. Now the Sun Wukong can rejoin the fray, and Panatom is standing right in front of him. He's got the stun, but Panatom has got the dash. So mid lane Phoenix goes down. Beads out by Panatom, another small win for Radiance. Now you're without Shinto for the next 45 seconds.
Panatom gonna dump the ultimate, just try and get some prots away from Benji and steal the movement speed. He does exactly that, and that'll save his life. But a good play from Benji. Love the adjustment that he's made in his build. Often you see Wukong players go Heartseeker 6th item in order to try and make sure that they can all...
Oh
no! Alright. Normally you see Heartseeker 6th item, we're just gonna move on past that. Instead, Benji goes Erendite for that exact same reason that we see Adapting pick it up, is for that ability to chase down the Morrigan. Made it very easy for him to find Shinto and kill him on that dive.
Well, Adapting, for no real reason, doesn't have his Sonic Boom here. I wonder what happened to that one.
Yeah, odd.
Yeah, strange things happening around this next Fire Giant. 27 minutes into the game. Still a small lead for Radiance, but not the massive lead they might have hoped for after Fire Giant number 1. Yarkor pops the Thorns here. Early usage of that one. So massive Relic now missing. Benji locked in, but not really all that concerned about it. And I think smart from Radiance to back off and regroup.
Very, very good defense from Sanguine underneath that tier 2 a while ago. And that means that I think that they're going to be a little bit more emboldened to stepping up. The key for that fight was how well Netroid used his ultimate, was able to get it onto one of these divers underneath that tier 2. It was a roar in that instance. Watch out for Netroid on this Heimdall. He had a very, very good game 1. Hasn't put out that much damage here yet in game 2, but certainly can.
Rongyu is locked in and nearly taken down. Oh, but it's the double pushback that gets Adapting right where they want him. Netroid has connected with his ultimate there as well. Big Man Tings has to back away. Aurora being melted through. Adapting comes back down and actually ends up getting what looked like maybe, or no, he did end up falling there. So Sanguine lock in the kill. Yarkor underneath the tier 2 tower here. Netroid low, and Benji maybe keeps Radiance in the game, but the Sun Wukong has to disengage. Panatom's having none of it. Oh, and he might end up going down as well. One more auto. Big Man Tings hits it on the fadeaway. Benji walks away as well. A 3-for-2 trade, and Radiance is still in it.
Man, I think that Radiance should be ecstatic that they got 2 kills on the back end of that fight. A little bit too aggressive
Benji
from Panatom to dash in. Benji is just hard carrying Radiance right now. 5-0-7. He has done so much in so many of these team fights, because that looked like it was going to be 5-0 for Sanguine, and I don't think that anyone would have dropped out of the green on the health bars. They were all healthy, going up 2 kills instantly in this engagement, but they just get a little bit ahead of themselves, and Netroid ends up falling for it. Panatom dashing forward while he had the blink up. Probably could have just been a little bit more patient and tried to blink after Benji instead of using those double dashes, and Ting's in a good position in order to capitalize on that overextension. But Radiance need to make sure they're all on the same page. Aurora plucks in Rongyu, and no snipe comes from Tings. It was a great job by Rongyu. He actually hit 3 right before he got plucked in, and there is not a lot of anti-heal, and by a lot of, I mean literally any anti-heal there for Radiance, so that mitigate wounds, he's getting all of that damage back as healing, and that's what ended up making it really easy for him to find that double push.
Yeah, the full golden green build from Rongyu seems to be working out for him here. It's Primal Fury for Radiance. So now the next FG being looked at likely will be enhanced unless somehow Sanguine get rid of it in the next 20 seconds, but not looking likely. So very important FG to lock down if you're one team or the other here. Yarkor, you know, it's kind of the great wall of defense here where Yarkor and Rongyu just locking in maybe the main entry point for Radiance. The Sanguine are not going to look to whittle away that FG in the meantime. Shinto walks in, but
trouble.
They read it. He has to transform into the Cthulhu. He'll stay alive, but adapting. He's used the Sonic Boom to re-engage it on the fight, and the real Cthulhu will lock down the kill onto the Mercury. Into the backline goes Yarkor. These tight-knit corridors, not where you want to be fighting a Cthulhu. Radiance lose one, and somehow Shinto gets out.
I don't know why Aurora couldn't find that Scarab's Blessing onto the Mercury, but it was right in front of him, didn't use the shell, couldn't get him in that moment, and it ends up mattering quite a bit. Adapting falls without getting that res. I think he likely dies on the back end to the Yarkor Cthulhu ultimate, but either way, losing Adapting in that little skirmish is big, and that was a great play from Cyclone. Sometimes against Morrigan, you just kind of shoot at air, and when you've got 2.5 attack speed, you got plenty of arrows with which to do it. Caught Shinto with 1 or 2, and forced Sanguine on the back foot instantly.
Maybe the biggest fight of the game now brewing. Adapting 5 seconds away from respawn, another 5-10 before getting himself back into Fire Giant contest range. Netroid and Rongyu just sort of getting it done on their own. Shinto working back in. He's found the stun onto Big Man Tings. The Polynomicon damage just too much. He sustained himself in the Scarab's Blessing, so it'll time out, and now Panatom drops the ultimate. Big Man Tings, though, stays alive. Benji does as well. Up to the Somersault Cloud he goes. A bit of a split fight here now from Sanguine. Panatom double dashes away. Oh, big split damage there from Radiance. The Sonic Boom right back in from Adapting. Down goes Netrioid. Rongyu on the disengage as well. Shinto suffers a similar fate. Here come the snipes. Panatom is able to get one, but they have to disengage immediately because Radiance are on the chase.
So close for Shinto on that backline dive. Cyclone lives on about 100 plus HP, and then once you know that Morrigan 2-1 is down, she's toast. She's just dead. No transform for Shinto at the time. Great peel coming in from Aurora as well, and now Radiance should be able to secure the objective with Big Man take the snipe.
Looks like enhanced Fire Giant won't even need the snipe on the back end. Enhanced on everyone except Adapting. The biggest moment in the game here. And still 32 minutes in. It's a tier 1 tower in mid and right for Radiance to take down, and there's still 2 members dead from Sanguine. Should be 3 exposed Phoenixes ready for the push in just a moment.
This is very, very good for Radiance because they have all this sustain. It's not easy already to end up getting into a position where you can stop an enhanced Fire Giant Siege, but when that enhanced Fire Giant Siege also has a raw sustain alongside them, it feels pretty much impossible for your poke damage to really matter. You need to find ways to all in, and that becomes increasingly difficult for a Morrigan. In the jungle, she's got lots of pathways to get into your backline. When she's underneath their Phoenix, how does she do it? She can't really just walk past the front line very often. Shinto's got to find a different way to get into that backline here in this siege.
And this is as well where Radiance have looked the different maybe from Radiance of early Phase 2, at least from what we've seen up to this point. In their last few games, they've had these types of leads, have had some difficulty in locking down these endgame scenarios. Now they've got a big lead. They've got this enhanced Fire Giant. This is where you're in a position to push this lead. You got to lock down these sieges. I think the raw sustain was big in taking down the FG. It's going to be big here on these sieges. You know, I'm wondering how the Sanguine base defense is going to start to look against what we know that Radiance can bring to the table.
Yeah, but really Shinto and how he can find a way to be effective is going to be really key in this. I've already highlighted why that's difficult for him getting into that backline. But I think Adapting also needs to find a way to be a little bit more impactful come this team fight stage. Remember how great Adapting was in the early game? He really got Radiance off the ground in this game. But since then has really struggled. His scoreline now sitting at 3-7 is not looking particularly good. He has not been able to find super impactful sonic booms come the team fight stage. I think we're going to need to see a little bit more from him. I don't know if it's trying to split off and get the 1v1 in mid and just get the Phoenix. That's something that Adapting is usually very good at, and Mercury as a character is very strong at because of the crit build. But if he can't win that 1v1 up against Panatom, then I think he's going to have a tough time finding some purchase on these sieges.
And we've seen, a lot of what Sanguine looking to do as well, where Shinto stealths in, Panatom right there to try to follow up. And that fight starts to go wrong when Shinto and Panatom pour everything basically into Big Man Tings, and they're still unable to finish off the kill. And then you got two squishy members of Sanguine that are a bit caught out. That forces, of course, the transformation from Shinto right back into the Cthulhu. I mean, the Morrigan has definitely had its high points here in this game, but hasn't quite found those executes on maybe the consistent basis that we were wondering if they would.
He's just having to contest against double relics on the back line both times that he's gone in. If we see Cyclone don't have beads, he doesn't have beads Aegis, then he's dead in that spot. I think maybe Shinto needs to wait on the Dark Omen, the 2, because oftentimes you get your 1 and then your poly auto guaranteed. If he waits for it in that exact same scenario, ends up waiting out the Aegis and then firing off the 2, maybe we see that kill go through. But if you're just going to dump the 2 directly after the poly, if Cyclone's fast enough on the relics, which he was in that instance, then it's not going to work for you.
I mean, this is a close game, at least KDA-wise. It's 17 to 15 kills if you're looking over towards Sanguine. Sanguine are actually ahead in the kill department, but the impactful kills in these moments, I guess, have gone the way of Radiance. And now it's back-to-back games where I think Big Man Tings, all things considered, though he's been dove on a lot, has done really good damage. I think the Ra has kind of hit the mark that they were looking for. But Benji as well, man. I mean, going into this game, I loved the pivot from the Cthulhu over to the Sun Wukong. I think it fit better into Benji's playstyle. And at 5-0-9, it kind of shows us why I might have felt that way.
Can't argue with it, man. He has been so impactful on this pick. That's why I was really surprised when I saw Gore's tweet and then beat you in our fact, back fact chain, whatever our segment was called on SPL Waiting Room. My brain is clearly mush. But I'm surprised that Wukong isn't winning more. This god is insane. He's just impossible to get away from as a backliner. And now that he does more damage, he actually does enough damage to kill you on those dives. And it isn't just an annoyance thing. It's that you're going to die if he gets on top of you in the back line. So I think that he's been really, really fantastic in this game, and where I think Adapting has lacked a little bit as of late in these late-game team fights, Benji's really picked it up.
Well, right back in we go, and both teams kind of on their full reset now up to this point. So Radiance able to lock in the mid-tier 2 tower, likely looking over towards the right-hand side if they feel that's necessary. Don't have any fire minion waves in just yet. And also maybe looking towards this Oni Fury. That's going to be big as well for providing a little extra push power, especially if Radiance are able to lock in one or multiple of these Phoenixes before you take that Oni. I'm not sure you look for it then, but with a minute left, Radiance probably going to lock down some extra vision and control maybe on the left-hand side and look for a Fury shortly after.
Radiance need to just play really slowly right now, because if Sanguine catches them with relics down on both relics for Cyclone, no beats for Big Man, it's going to be really, really difficult to not get blown out of the water right away. So if I'm in Radiance's shoes, I'm going to stand back, wait a little bit, and wait for these relics to come up. I'm a little surprised that they're willing to be this far forward even with those relics on such a short cooldown.
That's right, Aegis not available for Cyclone Spin. Oh, but it's the double pull push on the back from Wrong-You. That puts Aurora exactly where he does not want to be. The Kepri has to dash away. Not all that great at escaping. Wrong-You is going to spend the blink to lock him in. What a play from the Sanguine support, and suddenly this defense is all but secured.
Yeah, no, that's one way to make sure that the defense goes your way. That is easy for Wrong-You. A double pick up and push right after the fact. Make sure that Aurora, then he has to finish what he started and actually secures the kill onto him. Plus, Cyclone lost the beads, which means Shinto has an easy hunting target once they start to group up around Fire Giant once again.
There's me thinking the Oni Fury is an afterthought for Radiance at some point, but now pushing back in against Radiance is Sanguine find just what they need. Sometimes, we talk about how compositions work with one another, against one another, a big-time play. It's kind of hard to predict in those moments, but Rongyu comes up big right when his team needs it. And Sanguine better off for it. So now, you know, still a few members with this enhanced Fire Giant, but there is such big map pressure kind of pushing against Radiance here, Aggro. I'm not sure for the next minute Radiance are really going to be able to get anything done despite a 5v5 now respawn advantage.
Feels bad that for Sanguine that they don't get anything more than, you know, a couple minutes of rest basically against the siege after such a huge play from Rongyu, but against 3 members that all have EFG still, I think that once you have this Cthulhu ultimate, I like what Sanguine are doing. They're waiting until that Descent into Madness is back up, and then your core and the rest of Sanguine will start to group up a little bit and at least open up these towers, make sure these Phoenixes are exposed, and gives themselves an easier win condition. Remember, the Titan is tankier the more structures you have up on your side of the map. By taking things out like tier 2 towers that don't need to be standing anymore, it just makes it that you have that much of an easier time burning down a Titan in the face of a couple of respawns if you get in that position later on.
Well, I'm not sure whose power play this is, as Radiance do get a spike in gold, but Sanguine largely lock it down, and now right back to the same amount of towers still standing. So either team has the same potential to end the game if one of these fights rather, goes one of 2 ways. Fire Giant now falls off of everyone, so Radiance get next to nothing on their Fire Giant power play enhanced. I figured that one might be game-breaking, but didn't end up being one way or the other. Roar is gonna abduct Rongyu right back in. You can't get push-pulled if you kill off the Hercules, I guess. But Rongyu will stay alive, and Shinto will back out of stealth. These are tense moments, both teams realizing probably the weight around this FG.
And knowing that Cyclone speeds are back up, it should give Radiance at least a little bit more confidence, but they still have to be very wary of where Shinto is at any given time. Look at how spread out Sanguine is on the minimap even. I mean, Panatom is at mid, Shinto is all the way in right. They are really looking to put themselves in a position to where they can collapse in onto Radiance's backline.
Left side minions are pushing in favor of Sanguine here, so something you might have to be mindful of if you're Radiance at some point if those minions start to build up. But unfortunately, that's on the opposite side of the map from where the most important minion is, the enhanced Fire Giant. So Sanguine lurking close by. Remember, a lot of the setup has been Panatom following up on Shinto and then Yarkor just spreading out the rest of the fight. So that's something Radiance rather are going to have to look out for. Now adapting with the Bloodforged, he's going to need to be getting some confirmed kills on the backline, stack up some of that shielding for himself. But all things considered, we're at an even fight point here. Sonic Boom right through. That's adapting, but he has to dash his way away. But Netroid's been cut out. Benji picks up the kill here. Yarkor takes into the ultimate, and Cyclone's been stunned down, but sustained up by Big Man Tings. He stays alive. He dodge rolls away. Look at Sanguine pouring everything into Cyclone Spin. They finally lock in the kill, and a duct pulls Rongyu right back into the waiting arms of Radiance, but Benji has gone big. At the perfect moment here, Shinto retransforms. A double kill for Benji down the stretch. Adapting rejoins the fray. He'll pick up one onto Yarkor as well. It's Rongyu against the world. Radiance, 4 members strong.
Beautiful engage by Radiance. Netroid dies before he can use the ultimate or the shell. A great CC chain. And Benji with a well-timed knockup. And that's just the dive potential. It's ROM snipes, it's the ability to get that Wukong into the back line and adapting to get right back in there instantly at the same time. It's the first time that adapting really was able to find a good initiating Sonic Boom into this late game, and what do you know? It's going to be Radiance forcing a game 3.
That's right, Rongyu is the last line of defense here, but Radiance do not care. They will walk their way into the Titan room. Netroid is back on respawn, but there's enough damage to work their way through this Titan. Radiance looking to do the last bit of damage, and they've got it done, not without a little eyebrow raising there towards the end, but despite being behind in the kills department, Radiance are up ahead in the Titan kill department, and that's really what matters here. Game 3 after a big turnaround from Radiance.
You just felt like Netroid was unable to stay alive at a lot of these backline dives, and that's because of the Wukong ROM and Mercury combination. Cyclone also did a fantastic job. He's dead to rights as soon as Shinto gets on top of him in the backline, again looping around through the lane. but he rolls away in a direction that Sanguine wasn't ready for. And Cyclone knows he's dead. It's just his job to get as much damage out as possible. He does exactly that. Everyone kind of lines up for Tings, who finds a beautiful freehand snipe. That's what Radiance is supposed to look like whenever everything is clicking. Finally got it working in game number 2.
Cyclone Spin, I kind of echo you there. I think did fantastic work there, keeping himself alive against some of the dive that Sanguine were bringing to the table. Now in a 5-loss streak for Radiance, 3 of them, as I've mentioned, all went 3 games. Now, another 3-game set for Radiance, looking to turn things around. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right into Game 3.
Welcome back to the SPL. Sanguine and Radiance are locked in a heated battle right now, and boy is it back and forth. Myth and I were confident in this double Cthulhu composition with the Morgan Cthulhu being able to overwhelm Radiance, but it was the exact opposite. Radiance were able to spread out, deal with those Cthulhus, and eventually overrun Sanguine. Now, Myth, what did you see here as the enabler for allowing that to happen? How did they end up being able to deal with all this pressure and damage that was coming out from Sanguine, or was it more an execution problem on Sanguine's side?
I think it might be a lack of damage coming out from Sanguine. When you sacrifice your mid laner to be a secondary Cthulhu, well, you don't have any real AoE substantial damage coming through from your mid laner anymore. But I gotta give some slight shouts to Benji as well, able to separate the backline. A couple misplays from adapting can be forgiven because of the sick plays that you're gonna be able to see here. He's finding damage despite being constantly forced out by this double descent into madness. It's not easy to play a Mercury dive playstyle against a team that is essentially unkillable except for Netrioid.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw happen to Radiance that stalled this game out was that there wasn't anybody to dive except Netroid. And they did dive Netroid a lot. Woo! My man was struggling to find the damage, as Adapting has a huge ultimate that basically saves the game there for him and helps them turn it around and get away from Sanguine's pressure. But I think that what really happened for Sanguine is that Netroid was kind of alone in most cases. Not, and I don't mean insofar as there was no one there to help heal for him, in terms of providing meaningful damage to the team fight. I wonder if also maybe the Nemesis pick was holding them back a little bit.
Yeah, I would have much preferred to see Panatom on something that we've seen him on in the past. Susano would have been a huge factor in this game. If you're lacking damage, well, Susano's gonna bring it in spades, and not only damage, but AoE damage through that ultimate, had he decided to elect to not ban Thor and instead ban out the Nemesis and take Thor for himself, they would have had a much easier time in the early game. Shinto fell behind very early on in that game, and it felt like he was just having to play catch-up until we saw the core 5-on-5 start to group up from Sanguine. I think that there's a lot that could have been cleaned up there. I would have preferred to see Netuoid on something that has a little bit more maneuverability, easily accessible maneuverability within the team fight. He felt like he was a sitting duck. He was left alone in the back. Normally, this god Heimdall is going to be one of the most survivable hunters, but when you have to sit inside your Bifrost for 5 seconds against a team that has adapting on Mercury or BMT going every single ult finding its way home, or Cyclone Spin sniping you from a range, you don't really have the opportunity to sit still for that long. I think that Sanguine can clean up a lot of the weaknesses of this draft with just 1 or 2 picks.
And I'm glad you started talking there about Cyclone. I thought that he did a great job. I think it was the fight over near gold around like the 20-minute mark or so into the game where they had Cyclone spin low, and I mean dead to rights, and they just couldn't complete the kill. He was able to contribute to 3 more kills on the back of that from low HP and that critical HP threshold, and Aurora finding all these reses. That's another part of why it feels like Sanguine didn't have enough damage, was because they had to kill 6 people every fight as opposed to 5, and they were struggling even to kill 1 or 2, especially once things started getting later into that game. So this is when where Radiance really were able to bounce back around great team play. It's the exact thing we thought was their biggest weakness coming in, was their ability in the late game to get cohesively on the same page. And against a Copper, you have to be 100% communicating.
Yeah, that is exactly what it was. When there's 2 Cthulhus barreling down towards you, you have to play thin margins. First Cthulhu, okay, well, we forced his ultimate, now let's re-engage. Oh wait, Shinto's a Cthulhu too, and that's what you have to play around. It makes it so much harder to find those sieges, which is why we saw Radiant struggle a little bit on that left side Phoenix, but eventually they're able to find some clean team fights off the back of fantastic plays. And we didn't talk about it much there, but I want to highlight Aurora as well. His initiations were clean. It's not easy to maneuver yourself through all this CC coming out from Sanguine's draft and still find high value abducts, but he absolutely did it.
Aurora coming up big for them all. Of Radiance playing well to force us into this excellent game number 3. Let's get to the picks and bans so we can know exactly what tools these Warriors will be taking on to the battleground. Now, Sanguine will be in the first pick spot this time. This is bounced back and forth between them, and I believe first pick has won this one both times, unless I'm mistaken about that first game, since I missed the picks and bans. Sorry, everybody. But in this one here for game number 3, I do expect for this to be impactful here for Sanguine. A chance for them to get those top 3 picks when Radiance still only have 2.
I agree completely. They can also try and make sure that Cyclone Spin doesn't get a pick that he's going to be as comfortable on. That ROM pick was so hugely impactful. I'm sure Sanguine are going to be willing to address that here. But I'd like to see Shinto try and shift back more towards that Thoth playstyle. It doesn't necessarily have to be Thoth, but he could play Raijin, he could play Merlin, all gods that were available there. Cthulhu's win rate is falling. It seems like that god is really starting to struggle, not only for Radiance, but for Sanguine now as well. And they had 2 of them. So, I'm going to put 2 in the lost column for Cthulhu there. But the bans so far, relatively standard.
And we had a chance to sync up with Gore in between here as well, and he was talking about how he agreed with us on the surprise about the Nemesis pick, since up until that point, Pantom had only been 40% win rate on that Nemesis, obviously going down considering the loss just now. So, I mean, it's a pick that I think a lot of other teams value, but I don't know if it works with what Sanguine likes to do in most cases, which is why you and I were a bit surprised about that ban ordering and them ending up at that Nemesis, and maybe it was they felt forced into it to make sure it didn't go over to the other side against their Cthulhu. But I know you wanted to get back in on these bans. Cupid Freya taken away, so Sanguine are hard focusing on Cyclone. Meanwhile, Persephone and Nemoja banned by Radiance.
Yeah, I think Sanguine here are looking to make sure that they get themselves a hunter pick, so the Amaterasu ban coming through makes perfect sense. I think she's the best solo laner in the league. It seems like Sanguine's willing to agree with that one. Now, Radiance get to make a decision. Do they want to ban out the Rom and make sure that Sanguine don't get one of those top pick hunters, or do they want to ban out the Hercules and make sure that Wrong Yu doesn't find pressure inside of that long lane? I think it really does come down to those 2. Wow. It is going to be the Rom. So now Sanguine have to fall back to their next best pick, but probably going to be the Hercules first overall.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they do want to prioritize that Hercules in this spot. That's exactly what they choose to do. So now we have some interesting options coming to the Hunter role, right? No Cupid Freya or this ROM available. So they have to go a little bit deeper down into the God pools to find some viable options there. But you're still the sort of that other threat of, is Shinto going to get to play the Thoth this game? He's looked so much stronger on that pick than on a lot of the other ones out there. And look at this. Radiance apparently want to prioritize their Hunter right away. This could be a flex if they lock this Neath in. It could be for Cyclone or for Tinks.
Yeah, when we see Neath on Radiance, I'd be surprised to not see it on Tings. He loves playing this pick out of mid with a Transcendence, Heartseeker build, going pure pen. But yeah, exactly. What is Cyclone going to play? There's other magical hunters available if they do decide to go that route. Olaron makes his way through, patch it up with a Capri. Aurora's really been vibing on this pick. He's been getting huge value out of the Scarab's Blessings. Last week, we were seeing some mechanical difficulties for Aurora. This week, completely resolved. He is playing at the top of his game right now, so I think this is a very strong pick for him. But now Sanguine get to make the decision. They can go one of two routes. If they want to pick up their hunter here, they could either get the Jingwei or the Heimdall. But this Thoth coming out early for Shinto. I love this pick. It counters out the Kepri incredibly well, and we know this guy's hitting his shots.
I like this too, because you know for sure Radiance is going to take this away from them later, and they might feel like, in terms of their hunter pool, they're going to have to come down to something that's a little bit more niche anyway. So maybe Radiance aren't going to be able to ban it out, or they're only going to have two. You'd be okay if they ban it, and they're not banning junglers away from Panatom, that sort of thing. So I think this makes sense, right, to sort of wait off, get this King Arthur over there for your core as well, and now you have this beefy front line set up, the Hercules and the King Arthur, providing all this space for the Ra to work with. But Radiance are doing a similar route to game 2. They have all this sustain, the Scarab's Blessing. Good luck killing this team and getting them to stay dead.
Yeah, and that healing coming through from Ra is going to counteract some of that counter pick that Thoth has against Kepri. Thoth's strategy is to make sure that everyone's within kill range of his frontliners, just finding poke interspersed throughout the entirety of Radiance's team. Well, BMT on this Ra, drop a Solar Blessing, all of a sudden all that poke you just try to put through in a late game team fight isn't going to be nearly as impactful. They're still pretty susceptible to dive. Neath is pretty easy to lock down. Backflip has been buffed recently to be a lot faster than it used to be, but it's still that confirmed trajectory. You know where Neath is going to land, so if Hercules is able to make his way into the back line, he should be able to find a pull off of that, or King Arthur should be able to keep up relatively easily. So far, both teams, I'd say, pretty even in the picks.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I wonder what Radiance are planning to get for Benji. I mean, obviously the Cthulhu and the Wukong are both still out there. So if I'm Sanguine, yes, you ban away this Unbat, but I wonder if maybe you consider trying to keep this Wukong from ending up in Benji's hands. He had such a monster performance on it last game, but that's not what they're worried about. They instead go with banning away this Cthulhu. How do you like it over there in the solo? I mean, it feels like Cthulhu has really struggled lately.
It really does feel like he's struggled. Just empirically, this man loses more games than he wins, but Cthulhu is the god of win harder. He's the god of win harder. If you're ahead, what are you going to do when Cthulhu's walking at you? You're already losing the team fights because the enemy team is ahead, and now they've got a CC control center for their team, just absolutely knocking up everyone, creating space, healing out the squad. So I think that's why we're starting to see this Cthulhu get a little bit more value within this set in of itself. But this Mercury coming through for adapting again, going to have a much easier time finding his way into the back line. Thoth can't be invisible. If you catch him out, he should lose his life. Jingwei is going to be a lot easier for him to lock down as well. There's a decent counter matchup there, in that if Mercury throws her up into the air, she could dash out immediately. But this look for Panatom, it better not be production trolling us. I love this Susano hover. I love it a lot because it has a lot of good counter matchups to the enemy team.
It does, man. We love the Susano here, if that is what ends up getting selected here for him, and it looks like they are going to lock this one in. So it adds some, and I mean actually much-needed control here for this comp, right? You're not getting a ton from this team in terms of, like, big AoE CC that they can use, so I think this Susano is going to be huge for them. But what about Benji? I mean, almost certainly it's got to be the Wukong, you'd think, in the slot, right? With the Amma already banned, the Cthulhu banned away, the King Arthur picked, and he had such a monster performance on it that, yeah, I mean, you got to lock that in here. And this feels like, to me, a bit of Sanguine maybe misjudging the strength of these solo laners, banning the Cthulhu instead of the Wukong.
Yeah, I agree completely. Benji has such a good performance in Game 2. I mean, why would you be worried about it? It's very unlikely that he decides to go back towards the Cthulhu that we saw in Game 1. I think that Sun Wukong would have been a much better ban just to deal with what they're going to do to your draft. You need someone to not be able to dive your backline, especially considering it's going to be Hercules, King Arthur, and Susano running it down. It's going to be left up to Thoth and Jingwei alone back there, and the two of them have good damage output, but no tools to really confirmably peel off or even shut down the Sun Wukong in the backline. You can deal a little bit of damage. Somersault Cloud all of a sudden, now he's invisible in the sky, up back to full health, and then he can burn out and rejoin his team fight in his own backline. I think they're going to definitely struggle against this Sun Wukong once we get to that 5-on-5 engagement phase.
We'll see just how impactful Benji could be. Can he run it back, or will Sanguine find the answer? Game number 3. Let's get it down to Dawson and Aggro.
And now it is time for either Radiance to slow their slide down, right the ship, or Sanguine continuing to impress us after a slower start or slow mid sort of phase period there for the Sanguine squad. And Aggro, now both teams, they've experimented with the Cthulhu, they've experimented with the less initiation-heavy junglers. Now both teams kind of sticking with what's worked for them individually at other points so far in the set.
I completely agree, though, with what Finch and Mifflin were saying on the desk. I'm very surprised to see Radiance be allowed to select this Wukong. Again, it was so difficult for them to deal with in their last game. And things will change with the way that Sanguine is drafted. Netroid will not be left alone nearly as often because he'll have Thoth there to help peel for him this time around instead of trying to flank like Shinto was on the Morrigan pick. Just think that Wukong is stronger than Cthulhu right now, and that's exactly what gave Sanguine trouble last game. I think Benji might have a repeat here in this one.
And we got mid laners that are going to be sniping out one another. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun to watch if one or the other mid laners are really on their stuff here. Hopefully both of them are, because that would make life a lot more difficult. Wrongyu still on this Hercules, and didn't work out in game number 2, but still has looked good for him up to this point here in the set. And, you know, it's so important. Obviously, we talk about Aurora and taking away the Hercules from Aurora, but obviously it's going to do double work for you when the guy who's playing that Hercules can do well, and Wrongyu has done so far in this set.
Yeah, it may not have gotten them a win in game number 2, but it sure wasn't for lack of trying from Wrongyu. He had another really good game on this Hercules. I've got no problem with him going back to it. He hasn't fallen to the same initiation trap that I think a lot of Hercules players would, which is getting Khepri abducted and getting all in very effectively, since a lot of times Hercules players want to go a little bit more aggressive with their build path anyways. I think that Wrongyu is doing enough right now to warrant this pick.
Ooh, the push-pull, and then the abduct actually slows down Aurora just a little bit. The knock-up is there, but the escape from Aurora is as well. So he will walk away, and it is Cyclone Spin. Oh, look at this! The blink in from Wrongyu! Oh, Cyclone Spin turns it around! Wrongyu thought he had one. Panatom does have one. Benji goes down to a gank over in the solo lane. I guess you like the thought from Wrongyu, or you appreciate the aggression, but doesn't work out.
Listen, I think I might have done that exact same play yesterday in Ranked, where I'm feeling myself on the Herc support.
How'd it turn out?
Exactly the same way. It did for First Blood. Feels really bad, and all you can say is, well, I made the play though. Like I hit my buttons. I just got a little bit unlucky that it wasn't enough damage to get the kill. Look, if you're gonna have your Hercules player be too passive or too aggressive, I'd much rather than be too aggressive. I can't imagine it feels that good for Netroid though to watch Cyclone Spin be gift wrapped to First Blood though.
Well, the silver lining to all of this is that over in the solo lane, it looked like Panatom had level 2, level 3 gank. Almost maybe just right after the blue buff was locked in there. So Benji does end up going down, something that did not happen often, if at all, in game number 2. So slowing down the Wukong, definitely important. Anyway, we talk about SMITE battles and Shinto and Big Man Tings exchanging long-range damage in this game. I'm excited to watch Yarkor and Benji both do their own thing. On the King Arthur and the Sun Wukong, just the ability to dive in kind of on either side is going to be fun to follow.
It's going to be a lot of solo laner presence in this game for sure. I think that both of these guys are playing like two of the best solo laners in the entire league right now. They're really bringing a lot of dominance to their face.
Whoa. There's adapting to the mid lane. That'll get the beads out of Shinto. And really, what we wanted to see from adapting in game 2 early is what we did get. And you know, slowed down a little bit, really. Benji, BMT, Cyclone Spin kind of took things over as the game shifted in towards late. But adapting was the driving force for Radiance in the first few minutes of game number 2, so I like seeing it again here. Let's just run straight down mid lane, burn the beads off Shinto, and try to get something going.
Why wouldn't you? It's pretty much free if you can get onto this Thoth. He has to respect that all-in potential, and now it's a lot easier to all-in that Thoth whenever you have a Neath ult here for Cyclone on this left-hand side. Make it really, really hard for Shinto to end up surviving. I love what Cyclone's doing, just take a knee every so often, because what happens is Sanguine's dual lane has to go, hey, he might be ulting. No, he's not. Oh, yeah, he might be ulting again. Oh, no, you're fine. He's clearing the way. No, okay. No, it clutters your comms. It is super annoying. And eventually they'll forget. And then you're going to get knee sniped and you go, guys, where's my heads up that I was getting knee ulted? And it just feels bad for all involved. It's a little bit annoying, but it's the right way to do it, I think.
And the Neath is what we've seen big man Tings out of the mid lane often play. Cyclone Spin then usually on one of the magical hunters, but Cyclone Spin is going to swap this time. I mean, I look then to now how safe Shinto has to play for the next minute, not only because Adapting, of course, will have his ultimate backup and Shinto doesn't have beads. There's going to be a lot of damage pouring through from big man Tings. The Neath ult into snipe 1-2 combo, and Shinto could end up falling, and that's just sort of that global presence that this Neath brings, and I love the way Radiance has been able to work her into some of their game plans.
I think it's a really strong pick for them with the way they like to play these team fights, and it's a little bit risky at times because if you don't get ahead and you don't get a chance to really leverage that World Weaver ultimate, then you end up just having a weaker late game character than something like the Rom. But if you can get a slight lead for this pick and really utilize that global presence, then it's very, very difficult to answer. And I love what Aurora's doing. He's just making sure that Cyclone is sitting there getting passive farm, looking down the scope, but doesn't need to be autoing the minions. He's letting the waves clear themselves. And Aurora's just standing there zoning Netrioid because Netrioid knows at any second Cyclone can just turn right a little bit and slam him with a fully charged World Weaver.
And then you have to worry about Adapting, who can sprint his way down your lane and wouldn't expect it. Cyclone Spin will take a knee again, has just pump faked every time up to this point. And the wave will end up pushing back in. Ever so important now for Sanguine to get good ward coverage, I think, on the right side of their jungle. Not the left side of their jungle, excuse me, the right side of the lane, though, of course. Not often where Adapting will be looking for these ganks, since he can kind of go right down the lane. Something to be mindful of, where Cyclone Spin has pretty confirmable setup if Sanguine step themselves a little bit too far forward. And I think, you know, if we're kind of continuing these jungle conversations, we talked a lot about Adapting. I do like to pivot. Yeah, Cyclone Spin looking for the ultimate here. Connects on to Yarkor, but Panatom is in as well. There's the up-down from Benji. The King Arthur out of the fight. Oh, Panatom is turned around to the damage. Down goes Adapting. That's a fight that Radiance were looking to take, but Sanguine answered the call.
Love it. We get the player cams working today, and immediately we see Panatom. He's feeling himself a little bit. You know, what is that guy thinking? That they can try and 3v1 Yarkor, basically. 2.5, I guess, with the Neath ult included. Yarkor just does enough damage in order to put Adapting in kill threshold for Panatom. And the fact that Yarkor ends up getting away in the very end, and you can't even make that a 1-for-1 in your favor if you're Radiance, feels extra bad. Panatom off to a great start. Both Sanguine kills under his belt.
And you know, we've talked a lot about pivots and how the draft strategy has changed for these teams from Game 1 to Game 2, now over to Game 3. I like Panatom making the swap to the Susano. Might see another reason why here. He'll blink his way in, pulls Auroron back. My god, that is a lot of damage. Scarab's Blessing goes down, and Rongyu will have to blink his way in. And Aurora walks away. Scarab's Blessing cannot be understated on utility and annoyance factor, I think, and Sanguine might feel like one got away from him.
Still, you force out that ultimate, you get a little bit more lane pressure, you allow Netrioid to survive again coming from Adapting, though I don't think Netrioid's playing it that way if he doesn't know that he's got assistance coming in the form of his Susano, is Adapting again, paying a visit to this left-hand side.
Rongyu is going to get stunned down and tossed back, but Cyclone Spin not yet with the full-on damage that would have gotten the kill there. So Adapting shows face, but just wide on the Sonic Boom. Straight down the left side. Purple buff just shy of respawning. Wondering if Radiance have the timer, because it did just end up coming back up. So there could be a purple buff invade on the backside of this. They will be privy to it, but there is a small rotation aggro. Watch out from the mid lane. Shinto and Panatom making their way over towards the left.
Good decision by Radiance to not overcommit for something like a three-way split of a 9-minute purple buff. It's just not worth the investment.
Whoa! Well, Cyclone Spin sends out the World Weaver. This one onto Rongyu. But nothing to come of it there. Panatom in to lock down the purple buff.
Wow.
It looks like actually Aurora took that one away. Oh no! He had the damage to do it, so Aurora steals away the purple, and now Radiance 3 members walk over towards the red buff. The left side of this jungle has just kind of been forfeit over the last couple of seconds by Sanguine.
Nice job by Aurora. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and in that instance,
That's calculated.
20 damage tick, really? The 20 damage ticks of Rising Dawn coming through there, you think? Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, Dave, I'll defer to you on that one, I suppose, and give a lot of credit to Aurora for doing just insane mental math at any given time.
Right, talking about, calculating everyone's damage. Some math to be done here in the mid. Adapting splits the uprights with his ultimate this time, has to use the beads, and that'll save himself from being pulled back in. And a Scarab's Blessing, just as an insurance policy, will keep Adapting alive. So, 2 for 2 ultimate trade. But Sanguine may be better off ahead, as Adapting will have to go back, and they can strip away some more of the jungle.
Nice little snipe from Tings. Actually got another Harpy away from Sanguine on their attempted invade. But Benji in trouble, has the ultimate, doesn't get it off. Tier 1 tower down. And this is why, Dave, why is anyone worried about it? This is obviously why you ban Cthulhu and let Benji take the Wukong. It's because Yarkor is going to get ganked. He's going to not die. He's going to get ahead. And he's going to get an 11-minute Tier 1 tower. Nice little level lead for himself and open up the entire right side of the map for Sanguine, as we all should have known.
Well, the Gold Fury gets opened up for Radiance as a response. Netrioid close by. The Radiance will take away the Gold Fury, so a small answer back from Radiance to kind of keep things where they are. Just a couple of 100 gold behind. I guess there's nothing Benji could have done there realistically. I mean, they knew. I mean, Big Man Tings threw out the snipe. They were over by the Harpies, but at that point, Benji's maybe just too low to try to escape, and he stuck around, maybe hoping to stay alive or potentially turn around to kill on the dive.
Maybe could have started channeling the ultimate, but I'm pretty sure as soon as Shinto's root hits, he's just dead. And that's the thing about Shinto, is those roots are hit. He's just so mechanically gifted on a bunch of different gods, Thoth included. Just feels like the guy can't miss a lot of times, and didn't miss there, and made it pretty easy for Sanguine to get themselves back to a pretty even state in this one.
Miss him playing Merlin. There's something else when Shinto brought out the Merlin, man, and it was a lot of fun to watch. But now we get the Thoth nowadays. That scratches maybe some of the same itch there. Some good shots, good damage from Shinto out of the mid lane. Definitely still viable though. Go ahead.
I know you're a Merlin player these days, Dave.
Yeah.
But have you not tried out the Thoth? The Thoth, when you're schmoovin' on the Thoth, you feel real good. Let me tell you. You're dodging and weaving out of ways of abilities. Right. You're landing every single hieroglyphic assault. That is peak mid lane play. Whenever you're moving on the Thoth. So maybe you just take some notes.
I'll give it a try.
And give that a shot. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's so easy to hit auto attacks that, just another reason why Thoth is maybe worthwhile. Something I'll have to consider in some of my ranked games moving forward. Yarkor is going to get abducted back in, though, by Aurora. Immediately traded out with the ultimate here. Rongyu with the pull. Final Judgment charged, but not pulled on the trigger just yet. And both teams walk away full strength, but it really is Yarkor commanding the pacing of this game. Sonic Boom gets some damage over onto Shinto, but Adapting immediately has to leave, and it's a Scarab's Blessing to save his life, and Shinto will stay alive as well. Benji lurking in the waters back behind. Won't be there for the dive.
Shinto, very greedy pathing into mid, just should never be allowed to walk in that way against a Mercury, and he gets punished instantly. But then Tings snipes Panatom in the jungle, standing on a ward, instead of hitting Shinto. That really surprised me. I think that he would have had time if you just trust that as soon as you see that Thoth hitbox, you're gonna snipe and use it. That Adapting's gonna lock him in place just for an instant with that Sonic Boom.
Right.
I think that should have been a kill there for Radiance, but instead Tings shoots at Susano and hits him and nearly kills him, but then both Shinto and Panatom get away with a sliver of HP instead of focusing on the same target. That was a bit odd, I think, from Radiance.
Agreed. The 500 gold lead that Big Man Tings has over Shinto could have been a little bit wider there if maybe the snipes were differently placed. Interesting build option here from Big Man Tings. Kind of went full damage in our previous game, but we started to see not necessarily differing mindsets in that one is good or one is bad, but the Doom Orb into the Lotus Crown, kind of second item overall, is something we have seen kind of maybe half of the time on this Raw. So definitely something Big Man Tings obviously sees some value in. Benji's going to get locked in, though, here by Yark, or Somersault Cloud will be enough to keep him alive.
I think it's just because we see the Susanoo on the other side. You want some degree of physical defense against a god like Susanoo, who is just so capable of 100 to 0ing you with auto attack canceling really, really quickly. Not only does it give you some base physical protection in the item itself, but around objectives it makes you a lot tankier, like makes it a lot easier to withstand something like Fire Giant damage or healing up in the midst of a team fight. Can kind of stand and hope that instead of Typhoon one-shotting you, it'll leave you with a little bit of HP and Panatom won't be able to close the gap after the fact. I like it in this game. Feels really bad, though, to get no flat pen in the build. Compare that to what Shinto has, it's going to be a lot less damage for Tings.
Yarkor is taking a little bit of damage. Searing Pain flies off to the left here. Shinto just locked in by the Sun Wukong. Benji just sort of walks at him, and Shinto can't say anything about it. It's a Typhoon sent through by Yarkor that'll kind of disengage out the rest of this fight. Shinto still has the final judgment, so if needed to participate, he could do so from range. But instead, it's now maybe a Fury being looked at by Sanguine. It's really just Rongyu that's lurking by still, so neither team feeling confident enough to try for this Fury just yet.
Tings' ultimate is on a little bit longer cooldown in comparison to last game, where he did have something like the Spear of Desolation in that third slot. Now he only has the 20% CDR from the boots and the Mage's Blessing, so without that coming up, Radiance decide not to go for the Gold Fury directly off the respawn, and you just feel the difference that Yarkor is making on this Arthur. It's just everywhere on the map. It feels like it's unkillable, and with the lack of pen coming from Ting so far in the build, we saw the snipe only did about 35-40% of Panatom's health. Not that taking 35-40% off someone's HP bar is bad, but we saw that doing 50-60% in the last game. That's the difference of having flat pen and not having flat pen. So Tings is going to need a little bit more setup and won't be doing as much one-shotting all by himself.
All right, a little more wind-up time for the Raw. It's Pestilence for Yarkor. Doesn't even complete the full shield item before that, realizing that the anti-heal a little more important. Makes some sense if the King Arthur is just going to be sitting on Big Man Tings or Cyclone Spin or even Benji for that matter. The aura will certainly be worth its weight here. Primal Fury looked at by Radiance. There is a small rotation over by Sanguine, but I'm not sure they realize that Radiance are on this one. They're doing a good bit of damage here. Netroid is close by. That's going to slow down Radiance now on the Fury. Sanguine, take it away! I'm not sure which one locked that in. Looked like the boulder was just shy of doing the damage, but
yeah, I don't know.
Sanguine strip away the Fury.
That's been a trend. Shinto has to use beads in mid. Good ultimate from adapting with the final judgment. Claps Tings for 1K.
Oh, the Aegis keeps him alive for a little bit longer, but not much as Rongyu will pick up the kill. Yarkor in as well. Benji lurking, waiting, deciding where to drop on in. Panatom catches out the back from adapting. A near back-breaking fight here for Radiance as Sanguine pick up 3 and the Fury.
It's just been a trend now for Radiance. I mean, we were kind of laughing about it last game. You know, Tings is snipe, a little bit late, but doesn't matter. They secure it. When it matters that you don't secure it, it matters a lot. That snipe really late from him. Fury stolen away, and then Radiance. Let's say they get that Gold Fury. Do we think they still make the same play in mid, or do we think they were forcing that because we lost the Fury? I don't know.
Right.
The Radiance looks for that play in mid and subsequently gets basically decided, loses Fire Giant, and is now down 5K in the blink of an eye.
That's a massive turning point here from Sanguine. That was the threat. That's why, you know, I think the chat was, what, 60-40 split here on this one over towards Sanguine. I mean, this would just be tough from Radiance, right? I mean, we're only 20 minutes in. You know, there's still some growing and some scaling to be done by both sides. But Sanguine absolutely in control of this one. Their game to lose at this point. But this just seemed like the trend from Radiance, where they make their way into a game 3 and then just sort of crumble right before the finish line. So it's something worrying, and you hope it doesn't continue on this way. Definitely still some time to kind of turn things around, not only in the game but in the phase. But this has kind of been the MO, not only just for Radiance, to be fair. A lot of teams have kind of crumbled in game 3s. But Sanguine very much in control and liking where they're at.
I think it's a good point. I mean, you think about Radiance's recent struggles. I was surprised when you told me it was that many game 3s that they've been in,
right.
But just getting something there going for them it has been good, but their record in game 3s, obviously not.
Okay.
That's an engagement onto Aurora. Panatom will send the Typhoon on through and lock in the kill onto Cyclone Spin. Aurora has used the Scarab's Blessing on himself, so the Khepri will stay alive. The knockback in. Big Man Ting's looking a little nervous here. The Excavate is going to do most of his HP, but enough sustain will keep him alive. Not that he was under the real threat of dying after all the cooldowns had been used by Sanguine anyway. But another kill onto Cyclone Spin, 1 and 2. It's been a tough game for the Neath. Tough game for everyone on Radiance, to be fair. And now you're looking at a 20-minute left side Phoenix. 5 members of Sanguine all have the FG buff here. Aurora does not have a Scarab's Blessing. He does not have his life. Yarkor still spinning his way into the backline, and Sanguine peel away the Phoenix.
Yarkor is just doing whatever he wants in this game. And I think a lot of that comes down to this Neath pick for Cyclone. He got one shot in that last team fight by that final judgment from Shinto. But Neath just doesn't kill frontline that's on top of her that effectively. Her base attack speed a little bit lower. Just doesn't have an attack speed stim unless you can land the 2 on them. But that's a long cast time that you're not using auto attacks. And without that sort of threat of a ROM or a Cupid locking you down and shredding through your defense, Yarkor has been really able to do whatever he wants in these team fights. It's been easy for him in order to set up this Sanguine backline to just put out the damage they need.
And remember, Aggro, despite the win in game 1, there were some notes that we made where Sanguine may have been able to do things a little bit better, a little bit higher percentage of confirming the game. Again, they got the win nonetheless, but this is more methodical from them. Take down the left side Phoenix, take away the rest of these towers together. Now we'll get the Pyromancer. Only a minute left on the FG, so not much left to be gained. We'll back off, spend our gold. This is sort of the mindset from Sanguine that we wanted to see, the cleanliness. They all knotted up that we were maybe missing in game 1, so it's good to see in game 3.
Agreed. They have been clinical so far. They only have 1 death, Dave, and it's on Rongu, the support. The guy is fine, taking lots of deaths. I mean, that's not a big deal for the Hercules. He's up to level 16 now. Is in a position in his build where he probably feels near unkillable. Sanguine just have this game right where they want it. Radiance really need to make a game 1 against Ghost last week's-esque comeback, and then for Radiance fans, hopefully complete it, unlike that game.
It's going to be difficult when Yarkor is able to just do this. Oh no, Panatom is here as well. Big Man Tings will Aegis out a good bit of damage, but not nearly enough. That's an afterthought here. And at this point, there is an Oni Fury available, but the call from Sanguine might just be to walk their way down the mid lane.
Fire Giant's gone, and they don't have a wave, so they're going to have to try and brute force this one. I don't know how easy it'll be.
Ooh. Adapting rips through, finds 2, but there's no follow-up from the rest of Radiance. Benji has to fly his way away. Shinto takes the majority of his HP on the back end. So now a couple big ultimates missing from Radiance. Rongu will eat the World Weaver, so now add a 3rd missing ultimate to that list. And Sanguine haven't used anything. Net win over to Sanguine, and they just kind of force Radiance to play their hand.
Don't get the Phoenix, and again, it comes down to wave management. Radiance did a good job of pushing out that mid-wave. Bit ambitious for Sanguine to try and get that mid-Phoenix without a wave, without Fire Giant buff on their side, but at the end of the day, like you said, they don't use anything at all. They come back and get the Oni Fury anyways, and have set themselves up for a good Fire Giant. And you see how important it is for Radiance to have Tings on the map, because Adapting found a 2-man ult, hit Panatom and Netrioid with that Sonic Boom, and neither of them did anything. because what damage is coming? A Neath one? Cool. We're cool with
Let's
that.
go.
That's not going to do that much. Like, we'll Aegis it later. We can walk out from that. It's the threat of the Raw snipe is a key part of this Radiance composition. So whenever Sanguine took out the mid laner, they really removed a lot of the threat of adapting as well.
Well, the good news for Radiance is literally everyone has 2 deaths. So, not one person has kind of been stuck out as the lone factor, at least if you're looking around the room at the rest of your teammates. But here comes a collapse from Sanguine. They are not super worried about the FG. They want the fight. Aurora has to use the Scarab's Blessing on himself. The revive will be there shortly, adapting into the backline. Sonic Boom already used by him. Yarkor gets the kill onto Aurora, adapting, rooted down here, split up fight, Sanguine find 2.
You know what I just realized, Dave?
Tell me.
That one kill that Cyclone has is when Wrongyu blinked in the tower at level 2. That's been the only kill for Radiance. That was first blood, and Radiance, really, their tower did 80% of the work for them in that moment. Otherwise, it's been all Sanguine in this game. Maybe they could punish Yarkor for this positioning. Maybe.
Yeah, 3 members at level 20, but Yarkor can walk his way away. Benji may be the only one that has the ability to collapse in on this King Arthur. Still does plenty of damage, but Yarkor starting to turn things around. Benji down to half HP. Yarkor dashes to the side. It's a somersault cloud up from Benji. But in the meantime, the right side Phoenix has fallen. Yarkor's just wasting Benji's time at this point and staying alive and nearly turning around this fight for some kills. The Titan being looked at by the minions here at this point. Benji, now the one who needs to be a little bit more worried. In goes Panatom, down goes Benji. Sanguine find another.
And again, it's only 1 kill standing for Radiance. Low health bars here for Sanguine and no sustain for them in their god kits, but this is where that Fire Giant buff comes up pretty big. Yarkor, the Gaia as well, has plenty of sustain just for making it 5.
Shinto, just the threat of the final judgment flying through is enough. It's 3 members of Radiance up against all 5 of Sanguine. All have the FG buff. The left side Phoenix is just a formality now at this point. 15 seconds on Aurora, 25 on Benji. This is a winning fight for Sanguine should they choose to take it. They will walk in. And they're just going to look at the Titan here at this point. Sonic Boom catches 2 from adapting here, but the Titan has taken too much damage. Turn off the lights. This one's over. Sanguine get the win in Game 3.
14-1. Wrongyu's int into the tower, level 2. The only blemish on a near perfect game for Sanguine. And it's the exact same story for Radiance. Another good performance in a Game 2 where they get a victory. And then Game 3, the enemy team makes some adjustments in the picks and bans. They pick something a little bit different, and Radiance is unable to match that adaptation. I think that's been a big problem for them. Adapting tries to get the ball rolling again in the early game, but again, once the game rolls out of hand, he just cannot struggle. Right. He keeps struggling to find a way to impact the game. I'd be interested. I'm going to send Gore on this one on the stats for adapting's damage in comparison to the other junglers, because I feel like he's really been struggling to find damage in a lot of these fights, in a lot of games.
Agreed. Well, this one is good news for everyone, plus the community, minus me and Finch, who are 0 for 1 already on this week. They take it to 3. I figured it would be close, but I miss out on another pick here to start off this weekend in the SPL. And what a way to start off this weekend in the SPL. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, the guys on the desk will round out the set.
quite tough, always having bad luck. You think you're going crazy, look up, there's a new life waiting. Your head's buried in the sand, you've been dealt the wrong hand. Can't imagine how you feel, only you know that it's real. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on. Don't look back, just carry on, carry on, carry on.
Well, Sanguine and Radiance were both struggling coming into this set, but it looks like Sanguine got over their woes a lot faster than Radiance did. A dominant Game 3 performance here to give them the 1-3 victory, enough to take care of Radiance here 2-1. And Mifflin, I think there are a lot of things you can point out on this one, start talking about why Sanguine looks so much better here. We talked about getting Panaton back onto a jungler that made some sense for him, like the Susano, the Shinto, getting the hands back to the Thoth. The Shinto, that's the god, not Thoth. It just felt like, to me, Sanguine did enough things right here in this last pick ban phase to be able to overwhelm Radiance.
As far as I'm concerned, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I don't ever want to see Panatom on Nemesis again. This guy looks so much better on the Susano. He looks so much better on gods like Thor. He controls the pace of the game here. I mean, he's all over the place, constantly going for aggressive plays. There was a point in that game where Panatom initiated a fight with his ultimate. I was looking at Aurora the entire time, the guy I thought he was going for, and then Cyclone Spin dies somewhere else on the map. Like, it's absolutely nuts, the impact that Panatom's able to bring on this pick. It's hard to choose any one person to highlight when the game is as dominant as it was. I mean, Agra already highlighted it. Only one kill for Radiance being a level 3 tower dive from Wrong Hue, essentially gifting them their only kill of the game 3 of the set. It's nuts.
It is, and really this was a lot of great control from Sanguine all around, right? I mean, Yarkor had a very impactful game, whereas Benji went 0-3 on the Wukong that we lauded coming into this game. It was Yarkor that was able to have the impact at 2-0-10. Obviously, we already highlighted how well Panatom played, but Shinto getting more and more comfortable on this Thoth every time we see him. Adapting actually had a pretty good ultimate on him early on in the game, and Shinto beads it instantly, dashed out, and then said, hey, I hope you get another opportunity, and he didn't. It was just Sanguine seemed to have come into this game locked in, and you heard Aggro talk about this towards the end of the cast, that this is how Radiance are taking all these losses. They are getting themselves to third games, but they cannot deal with the adaptations from their opponents.
Yeah, it seems like Radiance is a team that's a little bit hard stuck in their ways. Well, this worked in Game 2, it'll work again surely, but no, Sanguine's already adjusted for it. It seems like once Radiance gets a win, they think, okay, that's how we win, let's keep doing that. When in reality, the SPL and competition as a whole is evolving constantly throughout a set, and Sanguine, a team that I wouldn't really associate with being ones to adjust on the fly, at least not in the past, has shown, at least in this set, that they are incredibly adept at it, and it's convincing. Game 3 was convincing. Games 1 and 2 are data downloading. Yeah, they got it. Download complete. It worked out perfectly.
Thanks for bringing a little bit of FGC here with us. Let's look at these standings, because boy are they in tatters right now. Sanguine now 8-6, only one game ahead of Knights and Radiance, who slipped all the way down out of the top 4 for the first time in a long time. Renegades, E-United, and Obey all swiftly improving, and if Radiance continue on this slump, it will not be long before someone from that bottom 3 rise up and start to overtake Radiance if they do not improve. Obviously, SSG and Ghost still up there at the very tippity top, and the rest of us just looking up at them. But these standings now more than ever, it feels like, are in complete disarray.
Yeah, of the bottom 3 teams, I think it's going to be E-United most likely to crawl up. Wait, no, I'm an Obey fanboy. Obey going to be clawing up there very soon, especially off the back of some improved play from Inbound in particular. No, E-United is looking incredibly strong, and I think Radiance are going to have to keep their eyes set on that team with Commander Baskin at the forefront.
They certainly are. I mean, they're set up against Space Station. I think that's one that we have to lean towards SSG towards, but Baskin and the boys have not lost just yet, so why would they lose there? There's a lot to be making sure that you're keeping your eyes on here with all of these games that are coming up next, with Radiance struggling, with PK rising, with EU United rising as well, and Sanguine now riding the ship. That top 4 could easily look different at any time if you end up missing some of these games. So you got to make sure that you're here all weekend so you can see exactly why and how these teams have shifted around the way that they have. But it is Sanguine that are our victors, the team we should be celebrating after that win over Radiance. They're standing by right now for the post-game interview.
That's right, we've got Wrong You with us. Congrats, Wrong You, 2-1 win over Radiance. Hard fought in games 1 and 2. Game 3 maybe a little bit easier on there for you guys. I want to start with you, though. You get Hercules in all 3 games. They get Kepri in all 3 games. Is that kind of cut and dry for you guys? That's just a matchup you were comfortable with, and you thought you could find more value out of that Hercules pick?
Yeah, I actually thought Aurora was picking Hercules, so it was like the same thing we did with Ghost. We tried to first pick Hercules because, you know, the enemy support know how to play it. But he did Kepri the 3 games. I mean, I kind of expected because he was playing that the last 3 sets, but I don't know. I just play Hercules because I just like the god.
Right. And you're good at it too. It helps if you can take it away from Aurora and then also look really good on it as well. And then in game 2, you know, Benji gets the Sun Wukong, pivots off the Cthulhu, has a massive game against you guys, and then you give it back to him in game 3. We were a little bit surprised considering what had just happened, but were you guys comfortable giving him back that pick? You realized you might have an answer for it in game 3?
I think our main issue in game 2 was we weren't communicating well with Morgan. And I think Nitroy and Shinto weren't like talking, so we just need to like change our communication, and we will be, I don't know, whatever we're fine with it.
Sure. Ultimately, if it's, you know, not a pick issue and it's just a communication issue, that's something that you guys could fix over on your end. And you know, we see a lot of these replays, you controlling the front line, which bought space for your mid laner to do a lot of damage out in the back line. Shinto has loved this Thoth here as of late, and we're starting to see this rise of kind of the backline snipers out of that mid lane. Why do you think we're starting to see the Thoth and the Ra a little bit more?
I think Thoth is probably one of the better miss if Persephone's banned, because he has a huge bow, he has a large dash, he has a good ultimate that, I don't know, you can't really miss it, I think. It's just the poke that he provides, and Rai is the same way. He has, I don't know, long damage abilities.
Right.
He heals, so yeah, pretty much that.
Hey, thumbs up from me on all of those, and hey, it's up to you to buy him some space to do all of those things, and you certainly did so. 2-1 win over Radiance. Congrats to you, Wrong You. We'll see you guys later on. I believe Renegades is your next matchup, so best of luck in that one as well. Everyone at home, we're going to be restarting our streams here really quickly. Quick break, so refresh those streams, and we'll be right back before set number 2.